Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. Everyone's class change. King of Shadows. One person is a natural disaster. Chapter 51. Listen. Bai Yi had a smile on his face and didn't say much. It is normal for others to think that there are restrictions. At this time, when Qing saw Bai Yi's hidden smile, he seemed to have thought of something. He couldn't help opening his mouth wide and asked, "No, Brother Bai, are there really no limits to your skills?" Bai Yi thought for a while, then shook his head helplessly. This move directly made the five brothers feel at a loss, and each of them had doubts about life. But the limit, they thought, was just the number of times they could extract shadows. Regarding this, there are really no restrictions. But Bai Yi thought a lot, and he was not completely able to do whatever he wanted. Kingdom of Shadows can only accommodate 270 shadows now, and your shadow minions will not level up on their own, which is a big drawback. But Bai Yi believes that as long as the two professional skills, Kingdom Domain and Kingdom of Shadows, are upgraded to a certain level, these problems will definitely be solved. At this time, the topic has shifted to gaining experience. Hey, I still miss the time when my brother led us to upgrade. Yeah, it was so exciting back then. We had to use tactics against a level 20 monster. It's a pity that we can't go back to the past. Brother, catch 2 more Naga, we are ready," said. The passers-by reached out and grabbed them, and 2 more Nagas were pulled out of the sea and directly out of the sea. At the same time, the invisible telekinesis turned into a blade and pressed against the necks of the 2 Nagas, making them unable to use sound-related skills. Although the damage is not high, the auxiliary effect is particularly strong. Next, another series of skill bombardments from the 5 brothers directly emptied the health of these 2 Nagas. Team up to kill the monster. Naga Siren, experience plus 16,980. Drops to be picked up. Tidal Fish Scales x6, Siren Eyes x2. At this time, Qing San seemed to feel that the efficiency was a bit slow, so he proposed an idea to several brothers. I said, "This is still too slow. Isn't there any way to improve efficiency?" "That's right, we can fight these Nagas very easily. It's not a big problem to fight 2 of them one by one. Unfortunately, there aren't many Nagas wandering around here. Actually what? I have an idea, but I don't know whether to talk about it or not." Quote. With that said, everyone's attention was drawn to Qing Si. They gathered around and murmured for a while, their expressions slowly changing from serious to malicious. After getting the tacit approval of several brothers, Qing Si picked up his belt, walked slowly to the beach, and started to put in the water. All of a sudden, the sea water in this area was instantly polluted. According to legend, sharks can smell large amounts of blood from great distances. These monsters that live in the ocean all year round must be no exception. Really, not long after, a new monster appeared. Just see, a little fishman with legs made of transparent sea water, holding a stone spear, jumped directly to the land. He was still mumbling something, as if he was cursing. At this time, someone used the probe to take a look, and the excitement calmed down a little. Monster. Sea Spirit Warrior. Level 35. HP, 52,300. Comprehensive Attack Power, 1429. Skills, Throwing, B+ level, Fusion A level, Cluster Thinking. Hey, what the hell is this? The little thing looks quite unique. Never seen it. Isn't this dungeon at least level 40? How come there are level 35 monsters? Seeing this, Qing couldn't help but smile disdainfully and said, "It turns out he's just a little trash, look at me." Skill, Brilliant Sword Chi. Qing swung the long sword in his hand, and a sword energy full of light was swung out, directly knocking the little sea spirit away and thrown back into the sea. See this scene. The 5 brothers laughed. In their opinion, this was an extremely funny scene. Bai Yi glanced around calmly and felt something was wrong. The sea water around here. I don't know when. Suddenly it calmed down, it was terrifyingly calm. If you had just arrived, the waves would be crashing on the beach, and the back waves would push the front waves, causing waves of water sounds. But now, I don't know why, not only did the waves not appear, but even the sea around the island became surprisingly calm. You know, scientifically speaking, this is actually a bit abnormal. After all, as long as there are high and low tides, high and low tides, and differences in air pressure, the sea will not be calm. I feel like something is wrong. Bai Yi frowned. The shadow beneath him was no longer hidden, and instantly separated from his body, standing solidly on the beach. At the same time, a shadow mutant jackal appeared with a shape somewhat similar to splicing, but with a slightly more monstrous aesthetic. There are about 10 of them in total, neatly arranged around. Among them, Black Barton also stood in the center of the mountains, looking unusually tall. This change really shocked the 5 brothers and passers-by. To know, although these shadow subordinates are not as high as them. But his aura is enough to intimidate those around him, not to mention that the values of these shadow men are frighteningly high. The 5 brothers marveled again and again, unable to take their eyes away from this small shadow army. But it was just as Bai Yi expected. The current situation is not optimistic. Before Bai Yi could speak again, asking his teammates to cheer up and prepare for battle, the unexpected happened first. Unexpected. The first sea spirit jumped up suddenly and instantly jumped to the ground, looking directly at everyone present. Brother Bai, you are just too vigilant. Look, at all. Seeing that there was only such a little monster, the 5 brothers wanted to make fun of it, but they were soon speechless. Violently, another sea spirit jumped up and landed on the beach. The 2 sea spirits stood together, staring at everyone, as if they were the same sea spirit. Wow, single quote. Wow, single quote. Wow, single quote. Only then did the 5 brothers start to become serious. Because, in a short while, the beaches around the island were all filled with sea spirits. I don't know when. Just look into the distance. At least there are hundreds of them. Gudong, single quote. Ching Si, who was smiling just now, calmed down a little, but as if the atmosphere was too tense, he spoke again. No matter how many there are, they are just level 35 trash. No matter how many there are, they can all be killed. But the next moment, the sea spirits standing together, in groups of 3, were approaching each other. The closer they get, the closer they get. Intel. Fusion. Just see. Those 3 sea spirits kept moving closer to each other until they were close and fused together. All of a sudden, the entire small island is full of such weird behaviors. What are you doing in a daze? Interrupt them. At this time, Bai Yi reminded me. If this is a tokusatsu drama, when the enemy transforms, is there a restriction on not being able to take action? After this reminder, passers-by and the 5 brothers took action one after another, and together with Bai Yi's shadow team, defeated dozens of merging sea spirits. But although this move had some effect, it had little effect. After all, compared to the sea spirits on the entire island, these scattered teams seemed a bit insignificant. After beating it, all the surrounding little sea spirits have been integrated. Every 3 sea spirits merged into a human-like translucent monster, and its whole body still looked like it was made of sea water. Although these monsters resemble humans, only their upper bodies are somewhat similar. The lower body is a water column standing on the ground, looking a bit sloppy. At this time, Bai Yi looked at a combined sea spirit at random, and the investigation was launched immediately. Monster. Elemental sea spirit. Level 43. HP, 74,500, 74,500. Comprehensive attack power, 2,400. Skills, B level decomposition, B plus level fusion, A level cluster thinking. After fusion, these monsters actually have much stronger attributes than the Naga Siren. If there are more than a dozen Nagas, they will be easy to deal with. But, these elemental sea spirits are obviously not comparable to each other in terms of Naga. The number of monsters in front of you. If you look randomly towards the island, there are more than 100 of them. Rip. Finish the ball. 3rd brother, why are you causing pollution? What did you say about me? Why didn't you say anything about 4th brother? It's not my business. Quote. Suddenly, the 5 brothers began to complain. But even so, they didn't really lose their temper with each other, at most they were just teasing. To know, although these monsters are not of high level, their numbers alone are enough to put any professional team of the same level under great pressure. What should we do now? What else can we do? Cold salad. Just kill him and that's it. Hey, I don't know if all my mana will be exhausted. Listening to these people starting to realize the crisis, they looked a little sad and even laughed a little less. Bai Yi's eyes changed, and then he spoke calmly. It's not a dilemma. Concentrate your attacks in one place as much as possible, and try to kill them without injuring them. Leave the rest to me. Listening to Bai Yi's calm tone, several people felt greatly relieved. Brother Bai, you are not even level 30, is there really anything you can do? Fourth, don't talk too much. Based on my relationship with Commissioner Yi, I trust Brother Bai. Okay, in that case, I'll follow. That's it. Quote. With that said, these people changed from the initial range attack, which was to repel as much as possible and inflict group damage, to a more focused attack. This large area of floating sword energy and gun bullets were all concentrated. The stand-in ghost turned from defense to offense, and with the permeating sea of fire and holy light, it frantically attacked a single elemental sea spirit. Original. A range attack can repel many elemental sea spirits. Although you can't kill these monsters, you can at least slow down their attack. This time, due to the concentrated concentration, although many elemental sea spirits died, the surrounding sea spirits were completely unable to defend themselves. At this time, Bai Yi waved his hand, and the shadows under him began to make big moves. One by one, the shadows began to work hard, resolutely blocking the elemental sea spirits that were constantly attacking around them. This is not over yet. From the shadows emerged one after another, which was a team composed of shadow stone monsters. These stone monsters are huge in size, and there is really no one more suitable for forming a defense line. The stone monster itself has a lot of health. After becoming a shadow subordinate, both blood volume and combat ability have been greatly enhanced. At this time, it has become one mobile fence after another, which is simply not too strong. However, the mobile walls composed of these are not completely seamless and only for garrisoning. Instead, they leave 8 passages, large and small. These passages are relatively narrow and are only suitable for passing 1 or 2 elemental sea spirits alone. Under the strict guard of several people. Although there are constant sea spirit warriors coming to the island, and then they merge into elemental sea spirits and attack non-stop. But, even though there are so many monsters now, they have been able to guard against them for a long time. During this period, reminders kept passing by. Team up to kill the monster elemental sea spirit, experience plus 17,200. Team up to kill the monster elemental sea spirit, experience plus 17,200. Team up to kill the monster elemental sea spirit, experience plus 17,200. Opening square bracket, closing square bracket. After a long time, Qingde collaborated with his summoned object, the stand-in ghost, to fight together, and his injuries continued to increase. Fourth, take a sip. Qing shouted. No mana left. Wait a few minutes for me to get my mana back. Qingxi responded. Depend on. A helpless and angry voice appeared, and now he was almost at the point where he could no longer hold on. He looked at the defense line in the distance. The group of shadows, whether they were huge bears, jackals, or stone monsters with obvious outlines, were all fighting steadfastly. Seeing this scene, these people couldn't help but sigh. The combat effectiveness of these shadows can only be described as strong. Obviously the level is not high. Obviously he doesn't have many skills. But that's it, with endless numbers, life or death combat effectiveness, and terrifying combat effectiveness and coordination, it has been able to hold on for so long. At this time, Bai Yi was sitting on the back of the spider-like shadow mutant jackal. Just like a general sitting firmly on the Daoyutai, there is no panic at all. The 5 brothers swallowed, and even passers-by stopped fighting and unconsciously looked up at Bai Yi. Really? Can we still keep it? Quote. For a long time, no one responded, as if they were all thinking about this question in their hearts. At this moment, Bai Yi scanned the surrounding situation. The 5 brothers and passers-by could no longer hold on. And part of the shadow army has also partially dissipated, and there is not much health left. These shadow armies are not invincible. They all face the enemy with the greatest advantage. Whenever their health is reduced to the point of collapse and dissipation, they will retreat back to the kingdom of shadows. It's not easy to hold on until now. That's the time. Bai Yi's eyes flashed with a faint light, and it was almost time to think in his mind. Just listen to him speak slowly. Stand up. Fight for me. All of a sudden, all the monster corpses that had been piled up for a long time began to tremble abnormally. Whether it was Naga or the limp corpse of the elemental sea spirit, they all changed at the same time. Just see. Naga's shadow moved and instantly transformed into a shadow subordinate. As for the corpses of those elemental sea spirits, since they are nearly transparent, their shadows are somewhat vaguely visible. But, even this thin layer of shadow began to change. The shadows under the corpses of the hundreds of elemental sea spirits were like snowflakes dancing upside down, gathering sharply into the air. Not long after, densely packed new shadow minions are born. Some of their bodies are slightly illuminated, but the whole body is also made of black shadows, and each of them is very intimidating. Shadows Men. Shadow Elemental Sea Spirit. Level 43. HP 11W1750 11W1750. Comprehensive Attack Power 2520. Skills: B level Decomposition, B+ level Fusion, A level Cluster Thinking. Not only has the combat effectiveness been greatly improved, but the blood volume and attack power have also been raised to a higher level. It's like going up several levels. After looking at it, Bai Yi's eyes were stern. He waved his hand and said, "Come back, change shift." Next moment, all the shadows seemed to understand instantly and started to act independently. Those shadows that were injured or lost, part of them all sneaked into the shadow body and returned to the different space kingdom of shadows to restore their health. And these shadow elements are like the generals who have taken over their posts, each one as ambitious as the other. At this time, the wall formed by the shadow stone monsters instantly opened several holes, allowing many enemies to pour in. When these elemental sea spirits saw the shadows, their first reaction was to be stunned. It was as if thousands of elemental sea spirits were all one, standing motionless one after another. He seemed to be thinking about what happened. But the shadows didn't give them time to react and attacked directly. The thin elemental hand originally constructed from seawater was like a soft braid. Although its attack power was not weak, it could not hit the key point after all. But the shadow elements are different. These thin hands are transformed into long and narrow tentacles with barbs. There is some light in the darkness, and it just looks extraordinary. Snapped. Single quote. Snapped. Single quote. Snapped. Single quote. Suddenly, the sound of shadow elemental attacks was heard everywhere, and red damage prompts continued to float out. Seeing such a scene of people facing each other and groups facing each other, the five brothers suddenly became hoarse. Even though Lao Sis' energy had recovered somewhat, he didn't pay attention and only watched the grand battle. At this time, it was like seeing the scene of ancient armies fighting each other and killing each other wantonly. Everyone who saw this battle, including the five brothers and passers-by, looked at everything in shock. This time, the limbs of elemental sea spirits are constantly splashing around, and their body structures are not that perfect after all. Compared with these strengthened shadows, it seems a bit unsightly. Puff. Single quote. Puff. Single quote. The sea spirit warriors were constantly receiving fatal injuries, and all their limbs and lives were taken away. These corpses were immediately moved nearby by some shadows, waiting to be disposed of. This fight comes quickly. It's not slow to go either. After being extracted from the shadow and becoming a subordinate of the shadow, what was increased by the king realm was not just as simple as 150% quality. Not only the killing power, but also the combat power have been improved by more than one level. From the most intuitive point of view, one shadow element can fight with ease against 3 or more elemental sea spirits, and can even counterattack perfectly. Such a powerful shadow army is here. Want to lose? I'm afraid it's all a difficult task. These sea spirits that are constantly logging onto the beach are gradually unable to keep up with the speed at which they are combined into elemental sea spirits. Yes, the speed at which they are generated cannot keep up with the killing speed of the shadow army. Just saw. These elemental sea spirits were constantly being killed, and the road behind them became more and more blocked and narrow, even retreating to the beach. Here, there are even many sea spirits that have no time to merge into elemental sea spirits. Aha. Single quote. Aha. Single quote. The sharp tentacles of the shadow elements swung out violently, gathering together to scatter the sea spirits one after another. Finally, those sea spirits who had just logged in saw the entire island covered with dense black shadows. They seemed to be afraid and did not dare to go to the island again. All of a sudden, the entire island seemed clean, and the waves were still lapping on the beach. If these shadow armies were not still stationed, I am afraid everything would give people the illusion that it never happened. As the not over, Qingxi was a little confused and subconsciously said this classic line. Single quote, comma, single quote. Qingxi felt his back being watched, and when he turned his head, he was met with Bai Yi's dark expression, speechless and choked. Bai Yi didn't want to talk at this time. No matter what kind of work it is, whether it is film, television or animation, the appearance of this sentence only means one thing. The big one is coming. Yes, just like the popular rhythms of, there is no harm when there is smoke, lucky spearmen since ancient times, remembering makes you stronger, and, losing on the left side of the wave, this thing will happen 9 times out of 10. In other words, this is called metaphysics. In scientific terms, this is called Murphy's Law. Did I say something wrong? Qingxi glanced around with an incomprehensible expression. But only found. Not only Bai Yi looked at him with speechless eyes, but also several of his good brothers looked at him with some resentment. Staring eyes, lower teeth exposed. It was as if a piece of shit had been deliberately stuffed into his mouth. Stop talking. Haven't you seen what Brother Bai thinks of you? That's right. You're talking about whatever you say. How many times have you said it? Stop talking. Shut up. Quote. Qingxi watched everyone constantly criticizing himself and subconsciously said. What did I say? This is not the end, what else can there be? Just before he could finish speaking, a huge whirlpool appeared from far away. The sky above it, whether it was due to the strong air current or some strange skill, the blue sky and white clouds became inexplicably dark. Just see. Heaven. Dark clouds suddenly appeared in the distance. Carrying thunder and strong winds are coming. Under the sea, there is something unknown inside that is stirring the sea water. The vortex is getting faster and faster, and it is becoming more and more dangerous. Needless to say, the brothers glanced at Qingxi angrily, but all they could see was that Qingxi was pretending to be innocent. Pity a muscular man staring. It will only make people feel evil. Even Qingwu took out a marker and wrote his last words on his glass bottle. That's enough. Bai Yi's eyebrows were slightly lowered, staring into the distance. Next moment, Natal's shadow suddenly changed and stretched out a huge arm. In the blink of an eye, the huge whirlpool that was set off on the sea surface was surrounded by waves. What followed was an increasingly violent wave. It was fine at first, just slapping on the land within the beach. After a few more visits, it directly caused the entire island to be submerged by several centimeters, and people's ankles were soaked in sea water. Buzz. Single quote. It's like a sea dragon turning over and setting off a huge momentum. A huge wave grew bigger and bigger, rising to a height of several meters and hitting directly this way. There is even a trend of gathering together to get bigger and bigger. Seeing this scene, which was like a disaster movie, several people all felt a little invincible in their hearts. This kind of attack, is it really something humans can face? But before they could feel despair, they quietly discovered the light all around. It actually got a little darker for a while. Look back. A figure that covers the sky and the sun is standing in the middle of the island. The reason why the surrounding area is slightly dark is precisely because of the appearance of one of Bai Yi's shadow men, the shadow giant. Maybe it's not enough. Looking at the waves in the distance, Bai Yi spoke softly in a tone that only he could hear. Next moment, dozens of shadow stone monsters with residual health stood up and activated their skills. Polymerization. It is one of the unified skills of all blue core stone monsters. After using it, it can gather together with purple core or giant stone monsters to form a taller body. Next moment, these dozens of shadow stone monsters scattered one after another, turning into angular black shadow blocks on the ground. Blink. A large number of black shadow blocks floated gently like feathers, constantly converging towards the tall shadow giant. Bang. Long. After a moment of insignificant noise, the giant's transformation was completed, as if it was completely natural. At this time, the shadow giant was promoted again. The entire figure has once again grown several meters taller, making him appear more capable and taller. Some parts of the body have also become angular shapes, like shoulder armor, wrist guards and other protective gear. Today's shadow giant. It is like a majestic giant stone statue, swinging its graceful figure at will. Before anyone could recover, the shadow giant picked up the 5 brothers and passers-by and held them flat in the palm of his hand. Subsequently, bend slightly and place your palms on the ground. Put Bai Yi into the palm of your hand, then slowly lift it up. Just at this moment, the huge waves of several meters came with huge momentum and suddenly hit the island. Bang, single quote, whoosh, single quote. Water is invisible, but its lethality cannot be underestimated. Even from a bird's eye view, the huge waves are so terrifying that one can't help but feel weak in the legs after looking at them. Gudong, single quote. Among the 5 brothers, none of them swallowed their saliva and felt extremely shocked. At this time, Singta University couldn't help but feel that it was the right thing to bring Bai Yi here. Although there is a connection like committee night, bringing Bai Yi along seems to be a smooth favor. But who would have thought? This person who thought he would not be a hindrance, seemed to have saved the life of this team, and now he seemed to be so eye-catching. Looking back, everyone looked at Bai Yi. But he could only capture the calm eyes as usual. How can you be so calm? Holy crap, that one over there, could it be the dungeon boss? But, isn't the boss King Naga? Hidden boss. It's a hidden boss. Should we say we are lucky or unlucky? Why did this happen to us? If you can survive, you will be the first discoverer. If you can't survive, say it. Qingda glanced at the beach that was submerged by the rising sea level and said nothing. But everything is left unsaid. At this time, Bai Yi still showed no emotion, looking calm as usual, with some unique temperament faintly revealed. Who would have expected it? Such a professional who has just awakened for 2 days has killed many bosses. And every boss seems so easy to deal with. But this time, maybe it will be different. After hearing the term, hidden bosses, Bai Yi's attention was drawn to it. Turning around, Bai Yi asked several people, hidden boss. Listen. Qingda was stunned for a moment, then quickly recovered and replied. It means removing the boss at a fixed location and triggering the encounter in a special way. Generally, the numerical expansion is quite powerful, and it is much stronger than the normal boss. And, if you encounter something unprepared, you basically won't survive. Gudong. Single quote. Qingda swallowed a mouthful of foam, stopped talking for a while, then looked into the distance and said again. I don't know if I can survive it. Although these words somewhat dampen the 5 brothers' desire to survive, they are at least the truth. The truth is often cruel. At this time, Bai Yi said, yes. Immediately, without saying a word, he turned around and looked at the whirlpool, causing another wave. Waves will still not cause harm to people in the palm of your hand. But this wave may just be caused by the hidden boss turning around. Possible. It's not even considered an active attack. I saw Bai Yi wave his hand, and then several shadow Naga and shadow elements dived into the water and went under the whirlpool of the sea. Not long after, the shadows connected with Bai Yi's thoughts conveyed the message to Bai Yi. Under the sea, countless sea spirits gathered together to form a huge monster. Although it is generally as clear and transparent as water, if you look closely you can see that it seems to be slightly different from sea water. It's like slightly cloudy glass and may not be visible from a distance. But if you look closely, it becomes obvious. The shadows get closer. Bai Yi, the more he knows what kind of monster is being born. Tentatively, Bai Yi looked into the distance and kept exploring. Finally, when fixed to a certain orientation, the system showed the results of exploration. Monster. Consciousness of water element, OSS level. Level 54. HP. \?? Closing square bracket. Comprehensive attack power. Closing square bracket. Skills. A level cluster thinking S level. B+ grade. Closing square bracket. Seeing this result, Bai Yi was a little surprised at first, and then nodded, secretly feeling that it was a bit natural. If there is too much difference in strength, the result of the investigation can only be this. The amount of blood is unknown. Attack power unknown. Even showing a skill is unreasonable. It's already incredible to be able to show a single skill with a level difference of nearly twice. Although, this is the first time Bai Yi has encountered this kind of situation in multiple locations. Bai Yi deliberately asked the 5 brothers, but the probing data he got was still unclear. Even A-level cluster thinking was not displayed on them. In that case, looking at the boss that was taking shape in the distance, Bai Yi thought about his decision. In that case, even though Bai Yi only spoke softly, everyone present could hear him clearly because their nerves were tense all the time. Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but feel something called hope rising inexplicably. Discussed consciously, could it be that this person has a backup plan? Stop joking, think about the difference between level 30 and level 50. They are simply incomparable. Even people who are favored by committee night may not be able to do it. What's more, Brother Bai doesn't even have level 30. Quote. The five brothers were enthusiastic at first, as if Bai Yi would be able to use his hidden backhand to kill the unknown boss in the next moment. And the eyes of some passers-by who had lost their sense of presence also lit up at this moment. But after thinking about it carefully, I used reason to deduce that this thing is absolutely impossible to happen. After all, the level gap is insurmountable. But this multiple level difference really makes the possibility of success infinitely close to zero. But something unexpected happened to everyone. Qingwu slapped his forehead and said as if he remembered something. Look at my brain, I've even forgotten about ships. Ah, yes, the second brother said that he had already prepared for the dungeon and got a one-time ship prop. It's useless to try tidal disaster dozens of times, why don't you just forget about it? Quote. Qingwu's eyes became clearer and he immediately took out a ship in a bottle from his storage backpack. Next moment, Bai Yi said softly, in that case, you guys, just leave first. All the shadows were collected into the Kingdom of Shadows, and the shadows quickly climbed onto the arms of the shadow giant and guarded Bai Yi. Due to the addition of new shadow minions and shadow elements, Kingdom of Shadows lacks space. So most of the shadow stone monsters were sent out and used fusion skills to merge with the shadow giants. This directly caused the shadow giant's stats to increase again, and his height also jumped several feet. Immediately afterwards, the shadow giant slowly walked away. Although the body is large, its movements are not even a little slow. Everyone has a misunderstanding about large bodies, that is, if they are large, they will be slow. This is not the case. If an ant watches a person move from a distance, it will feel that the person is moving a bit slowly. But every step a person takes may be a journey that takes an ant a long time to complete. At this time, the shadow giant slowly walked towards the hidden boss. Each step covered dozens of meters. Huge waves kept hitting him, but they couldn't cause even a trace of damage. At this time, the five brothers also reacted. Wait a minute, Brother Bai, why don't you come with us? Yes, how can we possibly contend with this kind of monster? No, give up, there's no time, I'll let the boat go first. Quote. Bai Yi ignored the discussions of several people, as if he didn't hear them at all. But with the frequent good words from these five brothers, Bai Yi still explained, I'm just trying. Even if I'm defeated, I'm sure I'll escape unscathed. Stunned, these words immediately stunned the five brothers. What did Bai Yi say? Even facing this unknown boss, he said, he could still try to fight against it. Qingda was the first to come to his senses, and controlled the translucent ghost substitute to directly hit Qingwu on the head. Boom, single quote. The crisp sound and pain brought Qingwu back to his senses, and he immediately looked at his ship in a bottle. Props, film and television reproduction ship in a bottle. Quality, green plus, durability, 1-1. Effect, after breaking the bottle and throwing it into the sea, it will turn into a beautiful black ship soon. Introduction. Want to become a legendary pirate? You also need an inaccurate compass, a musket with one bullet left, and unrivaled courage. Closing square bracket. Looking at the words accompanying the investigation, Qingwu felt a little emotional for some reason. But there was no time for him to hesitate. Immediately, the ship in the bottle in his hand hit the shadow giant's solid back hard. The glass bottle shattered, and Qingwu threw the prop directly into the sea. Not long after, the model black ship is immersed in the sea and becomes larger and taller when it encounters water. The great accomplishment is transformed into a real ship. Following Bai Yi's thoughts, the shadow giant opened his hands and smoothly placed the five brothers and passers-by on the boat. The rest of the five brothers were busy raising the sails. Only Qingwu slowly raised his head and looked at the advancing shadow giant and the back of Bai Yi in its palm. Qingwu's eyes changed again and again, as if he had something to say. But before he could say anything, "This is a ship with a special keel. After raising 3 sails, it can still set sail even if there is no strong wind." The speed of the boat was so fast that Qingwu couldn't say what he wanted to say. Qingda noticed this, walked up to him, and patted him on the shoulder. "What are you thinking about? I always feel like we should do something." "Well, it will, tilt your head." Bai Yi glanced at the black ship sailing away in the distance and breathed a sigh of relief. "Sure enough, I'm still not suitable for forming a team. If you have teammates, you will feel a little bit unable to let go," said. Bai Yi gave a rare smile, with the corners of his mouth raised slightly. Bai Yi immediately stretched out his hands, crossed his fingers, and stretched his body that had not moved for a long time. Bai Yi's eyes became sharp and his voice appeared. "Now, it's time to start." Following Bai Yi's thought, all the shadows began to move in an orderly manner. The shadows under the water began to move individually. They are all spread out, but not too far away from the unknown boss. It can be said to be just right. Call. Bai Yi took a deep breath. He had never learned to swim, but with his current physical fitness, holding his breath for a long time was not a problem. If he could leave, Bai Yi really wouldn't want to fight the boss in this sea. But 3 elements flashed in the sea surface, reflecting the blue color of the sea. Obviously the boss has been preparing for a long time, just waiting for Bai Yi to take the lead in attacking. What Bai Yi said earlier, "It's time to start," was not talking to himself, but telling it. Violently, the ocean vortex became more and more violent, the air currents cooperated with the dark clouds in the sky, and the seawater filled the sky. When in the sky, the meaning of rotation has not diminished, but has become stronger. This phenomenon does not occur naturally, but there are several examples in nature. People call it water dragon whirlwind. Hey, how about a dragon sucking water? Bai Yi looked into the distance with a serious look and couldn't help but smile. 3 water dragon whirlwinds appeared one after another. Among them, 3 figures appeared, carrying the monstrous momentum of the sea water, and immediately attacked Bai Yi. These 3 figures were obviously born not long ago. But what is surprisingly consistent is that they all seem to have the same consciousness. And this consciousness, obviously, Bai Yi is regarded as the primary enemy. Bai Yi's eyes immediately condensed, with a faint murderous intention revealed, and he seemed to be serious. Probing is used accordingly. Monster. Consciousness of water element, OSS level. Level 54. HP. \?? Closing square bracket. Comprehensive attack power. Closing square bracket. Skills. A level cluster thinking. Closing square bracket, opening square bracket, ? Closing square bracket, closing square bracket. This was the same information from boss, but it made Bai Yi rarely stunned. Logically speaking, shouldn't these 3 be clones or elite monsters? But Bai Yi didn't have time to think about this himself, and immediately got ready to fight. In the past, Bai Yi never participated in battles. But the unknown boss we faced this time was obviously not something that could be easily dealt with and killed by looking up at the overall situation gracefully. ... Bai Yi took another deep breath and got ready. For him who had never learned to swim before, he really didn't want to go into the water. His lack of water habit was a disadvantage. Black Barton, Shadow Purple Stone, Ninja. Bai Yi slowly recited the 3 names, and immediately these 3 shadows walked out of the shadow. The huge height and size of Black Barton and Purple Stone made both Ninja and Shadow look a bit small. Bai Yi pushed his legs hard and jumped lightly. In a flash, Bai Yi was already standing among the shadow generals. "Throw it over," Bai Yi ordered casually. Immediately after receiving the order, the shadow giant directly pinched 2 fingers and pulled the ninja up. Then the giant's arm joints bent backwards, and with a strong swing, he was thrown directly towards the 3 water element boss that was rushing towards him. Bang! Wow! A huge splash of water exploded, like a depth charge falling beautifully horizontally into the water. Bai Yi shrugged his neck slightly and frowned. Although he had expected it, it still made him feel a little strange. No damage shown. Yes, in the past, Any damage attack would more or less display a string of numbers to express the damage caused to it. But, not this time. Even if the ninja is thrown like a sandbag, the damage should be hundreds or thousands. There is something wrong with this water element boss. Bai Yi looked at the 3 water elements approaching, his brows never relaxed. Those 3 water elements. It has completely separated from the water dragon whirlwind at the rear and has become an independent existence. Even if you look at them from a distance, each of them is as tall as a building, which makes them look extremely frightening. This terrifying form alone is enough to send chills down the spines of most professionals. But Bai Yi at this time. But he analyzed it calmly. Since it is the element of water, water has no form. If you think about it carefully, maybe these 3 bosses are all illusions. Thinking of this, Bai Yi couldn't help but think of a movie in which the villain didn't have any superpowers, only the ability to create illusions. But this alone is enough to make the protagonist fool around. The more he thought about it, the more likely Bai Yi felt that this was possible. But, the ninja fell into the water and was immediately targeted by these 3 water element bosses. One of the water elements instantly ejected a thick water column from its interior and shot towards the ninja floating on the sea. There is no reserve. There are no special effects. It only took a moment to hit the ninja. Immediately, a red damage prompt flashed. Ninja HP 14823. Tisk. Isn't it an illusion? Bai Yi showed a face that showed no trace of a smile and looked directly at the 3 water element bosses that were approaching in midair. Immediately, Bai Yi made a decision and all instructions were issued instantly. Almost at the same time, the shadow giant received the order and immediately began to take action. Just see. One after another figures emerged from the shadows, all of them Bai Yi's shadow men. After a period of recovery, even if he had been seriously injured before, he would be almost healed at this time. And as they appear, the shadow giant picked them up one by one and kept throwing them into the distance. The destination location is around the 3 water element bosses. The element of water approaches. The shadow giant here is almost complete. It seems that the appropriate attack distance has been determined. The huge water element in the center drags its body like a drop of water and gathers a water column. It was launched before it could be launched. However, Bai Yi waved his hand, as if he was driving away an rude guest. Aha! Single quote. The water element's attack comes out instantly. But when the water column burst out, its target Bai Yi had disappeared. Buzz. The 3 water elements seemed puzzled and annoyed, and began to tremble slightly, causing a lot of water to slowly drip into the sea. Unexpected. As if sensing something, the water element at the rear right turned around and sensed the target. Bai Yi. Unexpectedly, they appeared in the opposite direction from when they came. Being held up by the shadow giant is usual. It's as sure as ever of winning. Buzz. The 3 water elements buzzed together, looking like they were boiling. It was difficult to get close to the enemy by dragging his body. In less than a blink of an eye, it appeared in the opposite direction again. The water element buzzed with emotion for a moment, then immediately rushed towards Bai Yi's current location. Arriving again. Once again, the raging water column was sprayed out. But as usual, still no hit. In the blink of an eye, Bai Yi's figure unexpectedly appeared in another direction. Let's ignore the mood of the water element boss. Bai Yi himself was smiling a little. Doing all this is very simple. First, obtain one of the specialized skills of the hidden SSS level profession, Shadow Swap. Secondly, have a natal shadow who can use his own skills. At last, let the 2 shadows be in the same position. Natal shadow exchanges with natal shadow first, and Bai Yi's body exchanges with another shadow at the same moment. At this point, the teleportation is completed. Fortunately, the seawater near this island is not very deep. Even if the shadow giant is submerged by most of the seawater, it can still stand firm. Otherwise, Bai Yi has to soak in the water. Next, the scene was very interesting. The 3 water element bosses kept rushing towards Bai Yi, but they missed him the moment they were about to attack. If emotions could be written on the water, I would probably only write a big angry plate emoticon. But after playing around a lot, these 3 water elements actually learned to be a little smarter. One stayed in place, one surveyed the surroundings, and the other pursued Bai Yi at all times. Now, Bai Yi had a headache. Good thing. At this time, a shadow subordinate sent crucial information. The water element realized that if he followed the rules, he might not be able to hurt Bai Yi at all until time ran out. Ever since, they came up with this way of splitting up operations. But all seemed to be in vain. Just because, when the water element was insightfully analyzing Bai Yi's weakness, why wasn't Bai Yi also analyzing it in reverse? There are 3 clones on the sea, and each of them cannot be attacked. At the same time, these 3 clones can also use the attack method of bursting out water columns to deal a large number of attacks. High attack, high immunity, he is huge and invincible. But, as a certain anime shows, once you show too much invincibility, the end is not far away. According to a report from a certain underwater shadow Naga, a special unknown object was discovered under the sea. This object, it's like a giant scallop, but everything looks abnormal. The 2 shells that should have been carapace showed a blue color like sea water. The 2 carapace seemed to surround the center, protecting the core. And the core of this, it was faintly flashing with light blue light, looking a bit mysterious. The moment he got the news, Bai Yi figured everything out. No wonder those clones on the sea will not be attacked no matter what. It turns out that the body of the water element was actually preserved safe and sound. Just like in the legend, the big lich who puts the heart in the box will not be threatened as long as the heart is not destroyed. This water element boss is also like this. Go. Attack that thing. Bai Yi stood in the hands of the shadow giant and gave orders from the air. Even though they are far apart, the shadows still maintain a spiritual connection with Bai Yi. The moment the order was given, several nearby shadow Nagas began to take action. At first, the water element boss didn't seem to be defensive, allowing the shadow Naga to quickly swim to his side without making any move. Until, shadow Naga caused damage to it. Water element core HP 3422. Water element core HP 3422. Boom. Single quote. Violently. There was a tremor in the surrounding area. The water around them began to flow wildly, pushing several shadow Naga around them into the distance. But even so, the shadow Nagas that were pushed far away did not suffer even the slightest loss of health. Perhaps, this is one of the core disadvantages of the water element. Although the condensed clone is invincible, it not only has powerful attacks, but is also immune to damage. But this core can't do any damage. It seems that it can only generate underwater shock waves, pushing surrounding creatures tens of meters away. On the sea, the shadow giant's chest was filled with sea water. The terrain under its feet was not solid, and it seemed that as long as it moved a little, a large amount of sand would pour towards the seabed. But this did not have much impact on Bai Yi. Just see. The shadow giant raised his hands high and held Bai Yi between his eyebrows. You can still play with the 3 water element clones. But before this water element clone could cross a long distance and shoot a water column towards Bai Yi's head, it suddenly changed its course and gradually dived into the water. The water element clone is the first to bear the brunt. He stopped chasing Bai Yi stupidly. Bai Yi raised his eyebrows and immediately realized that things were not as they appeared. This water element clone dived into the water, obviously to protect its core. If this water element clone is allowed to protect his core, then the weakness that the boss finally exposed will no longer be exposed. If this water element can't find a new weakness, I'm afraid it will be impossible to attack again. Time is running out. Bai Yi's eyes narrowed and he immediately gave the order. Natal Shadow and Bai Yi have the same origin. To a certain extent, they are one and the same, so most of Bai Yi's skills can be used by the Shadow. In a flash, Shadow then used Bai Yi's professional skill, Shadow Swap. Next moment, the Shadow Naga next to the core of the water element changed instantly, and in an instant, the position of the Shadow was exchanged. The Shadow that should have been on the sea surface was instantly replaced next to the core of the water element. The Shadow Naga at the bottom of the sea was replaced at the surface of the sea. After the replacement is completed, Natal Shadow didn't hesitate at all. He squeezed the ancient king's thorn very tightly in his hand and swam toward the core in a swimming style that he didn't know about water. It is better to say that it is swimming than to step on the bottom of the sea and jump again and again. It's like an astronaut stepping onto the moon. It's like Sun Monkey who has performed Shui Shuji, constantly leaping forward on the bottom of the sea. Although the water element clone is huge, it will take a lot of time to get here. And these times. But it is enough for the shadow to release an attack, causing a certain amount of damage. Buzz. Single quote. A shock wave erupted from the core of the water element, causing the shadow to be swept back several meters by the invisible wave. After the first experience, Shadow directly predicted the time when the shock wave would arrive, and plunged his legs into the sand on the seabed at the last moment. Now, even this shock wave cannot shake the shadow at all. Between several predictions and moves, the shadow has already arrived close to the core of the water element. Standing firmly on both legs, the shadow held a short thorn and stabbed it directly into the shimmering core of the water element. Your shadow minion, Natal Shadow, attacks key parts, triggering a super critical hit, causing water element core HP 92362. Closing square bracket. Your shadow minion, Natal Shadow, attacks key parts, triggering a super critical hit, causing water element core HP 85852. Closing square bracket. Opening square bracket, closing square bracket. The HP of the water elemental core is unknown. But, as high as the water body's attack and dodge are, the core of the water element is correspondingly full of flaws. Every attack, they all pointed directly at the critical point. The broken thorn of the ancient king in Shadow's hand hit the core of the water element again and again. Due to the passive special effect of Ancient King's Broken Thorn, critical hit damage 200%, every damage dealt is extremely considerable. Orange excess critical hit prompts constantly appear somewhere under the sea. This move seemed to directly make the water element core furious, and the carapace on both sides trembled. Bang bang, bang bang, the two carapaces surrounding the core of the water element began to move. Although the speed is not fast, like an old lady eating slowly, the posture is like a frightened clam trying to protect itself. It can be said, if the carapace is completely closed and the water element clone returns, it may be a real headache. So far, the speed in Shadow's hand has reached the fastest speed. One after another, nearly 100,000 injuries were floating around. On the sea, the two water element clones seemed to be aware of Bai Yi's situation and began to attack Bai Yi. Bai Yi's calm demeanor has also retreated. Without Natal Shadow's skill support, he would have to swap places with the shadow minions in the sea. He can no longer do the perfect teleportation like before, playing with these water elemental clones in a precise manner, and sitting firmly on the shadow giant's hand every time, not letting himself get a trace of water splash. Looking at the two water element clones approaching in the distance, Bai Yi took a deep breath. He was ready to enter the water and consume it slowly. But thinking about the shadow of success, his eyes suddenly sharpened, and he silently recited in his heart. Please, another me. Seabed. Natal Shadow still maintains extreme speed in his hands, and every attack carries powerful force. A series of orange prompts representing excessive critical hits floated by. The accumulated damage can no longer be calculated in millions. There were probably hundreds of attacks, all caused by the Shadow's non-stop attacks. But there's something scary about that. This water element core actually has no intention of bursting. Suddenly, Natal Shadow seemed to have noticed something. The ancient king thorn in his hand paused, and his faceless face looked up. Through the unknown depth of water, you can still see the little bit of light shining from the sky to the bottom of the sea. Can't see clearly. Even if you can see clearly, you can't tell. After all, the enemy is a clone of the water element. His body shape can be seen in midair, but it is almost indistinguishable when submerged in the water. There is almost no difference between the colors of seawater and water element clones. But even for such an enemy, the shadow seemed to sense it, and the face made of black shadow turned upward. It was as if he could predict that the water element clone was about to arrive. So far, the speed in Natal Shadow's hand returned to attack mode in an instant from the stagnation. Every attack, they all represent the ultimate strength and speed of this body. Boom, single quote, boom, single quote, boom, single quote. One after another loud noises spread from the water. If there are professionals here, they will definitely see the series of numbers. Attack key parts, triggering a super critical hit, causing water element core HP 82362. Closing square bracket. Attack key parts, triggering a super critical hit, causing water element core HP 95852. Closing square bracket. Attack key parts, triggering a super critical hit, causing water element core HP 82483. Closing square bracket. Opening square bracket, closing square bracket. There is an old saying that a drop of water penetrates a stone, but the situation at this time is exactly the opposite. Frequent attacks converge a little. Even the boss water elemental core, which is so powerful that it is unknown, still suffered fatal damage. Crack, 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 single quote. Like the crackle of firecrackers, a crack appeared on the surface of the core of the water element. This crack continues to spread along the irregular spherical surface of the core. Just like someone hammered a nail into the glass frame. With the crisp sound of this core crack, Natal Shadow's movements continued unabated, and he frequently attacked the center of the crack again and again. On the sea, boss water element core's blood volume is lower than 30% and enters the weak state. Weakness. Physical fitness can only exert less than 50%. This reminder came into Bai Yi's eyes, which made his bad mood feel a lot better. Not so long ago, the two water element clones rushed forward and launched a swift attack towards Bai Yi. Good thing Bai Yi used Shadow Swap in time and switched places with a Shadow Sea Spirit in the distance. This attack did not fall on him. However, the Shadow Sea Spirit also felt uncomfortable. While his upper body was still above the water, Bai Yi glanced over there. Just see. The Shadow Sea Spirit was suddenly held in the palm of the Shadow Giant's hand, and the two huge water element clones each released a water column towards it. Boom, single quote. Boom, single quote. The Shadow Sea Spirit, which was not large in size, was directly carried very far away by these two powerful currents. The Shadow Sea Spirit flew out violently. Circles of ripples were drawn on the sea surface, just like a stone floating in water, creating 12 rippling and gorgeous ripples. Shadow Sea Spirit HP 35720. Shadow Sea Spirit HP 36390. As if accumulating resentment for being tricked, these two attacks were charged for several seconds. The final damage dealt was actually 3 times higher than the value of the instant attack. Your shadow subordinate, Shadow Sea Spirit Warrior, is dead. Bai Yi was immersed in the sea water. Ignore the discomfort in your eyes, ears, and nostrils. What Bai Yi is thinking is, fortunately, the replacement was quick, otherwise I would have been wasted. Single quote. But even if he suffered those 2 attacks, Bai Yi would probably be fine. After all, the item, Shadow Guardian, that he had almost neglected was still firmly wrapped around his shoulders. These injuries may not be able to break the shield of this item. But at this time, Bai Yi had no time to think about it. His eyes were carefully staring at the 2 water element clones in the distance. Although they were submerged in the water and their vision was somewhat disturbed, they were still staring closely. Bai Yi immersed himself in the water without making any unnecessary movements. The whole body sank first. Then, like a half-filled mineral water bottle, the whole face naturally floated to the surface of the water. But the next second, the whole body was immersed in the seawater again. Just going up and down, back and forth, Bai Yi felt helpless. No way. He has poor water quality, so he can only rely on his own buoyancy. According to the compulsory education for professionals in the Dragon Kingdom, there is some training for extreme situations. We have trained on how to deal with vacuum environments, mid-air, underwater, extreme cold, and heat. But the water I learned in school before was all learned from this body. What does it have to do with Bai Yi, who has been transmigrated to this point? My eyes were repeatedly immersed in sea water, which made me feel a little uncomfortable. But Bai Yi still stared at the 2 water element clones in the distance as if nothing had happened. He won't let his guard down. If the 2 water element clones find him and melt into the sea water to attack him, Bai Yi will really be in trouble. But the good thing is, this water element boss may be a little lacking in intelligence. Or maybe, too confident in yourself. All in all, these 2 water element clones were always flying in the midair above the sea. They had no intention of diving into the water to become invisible and make any surprise attacks. Seabed. Natal Shadow still wields the thorn in his hand. The cracks in the core of the water element are also constantly expanding. This rift will probably get worse, with no possibility of recovery at all. But, counting the time, the water element clone on the sea should finally arrive. As expected, Unexpected. The movement of Natal Shadow's hand suddenly stopped, and when he looked at the shadow on his right hand holding the ancient king's short thorn, part of it had been washed away by the rapid water flow. The broken thorn of the ancient king in his hand fell off and floated slowly towards the seabed. No need to think about it. The water element clone has obviously arrived around the shadow and launched an attack. Out of sight, unpredictable, but the attack was a real one. If it were an ordinary person, I am afraid that it is not impossible for Liu Shenwuju to have panicked and even lost his fighting spirit. But Shadow is never ordinary. In fact, it can be said that he has nothing to do with people at all. After all, they are shadows. Just see. Natal Shadow completely ignored the incomplete right hand and slammed his left hand towards the core of the water element. Boom. Single quote. Shadow waved his left arm and punched the core of the water element directly. Water element core HP 36832. Click. The core of the water element was impacted and shattered again. This is not over yet. Shadow's somewhat incomplete right arm had no intention of stopping and struck again at an extremely fast speed. Water element core HP 31490. At the same time, Shadow's left hand relied on intuition and directly picked up the ancient king's thorn floating in the sea. With just one swing, he launched a series of fierce attacks. The successive attacks left the core of the water element without any chance to breathe, and it was constantly being attacked. This time, the water element clone above was completely furious, and he gathered his strength and launched another attack on the shadow. An invisible current rushed over. The power is so incredible that no man-made high-pressure water gun can match it. The right half of the shadow was directly hit by a large number of attacks. HP 28900. The seemingly powerful attack actually did not cause much damage to the shadow. All of Shadow's physical qualities are 3 times lower than Bai Yi's. King's Realm plus Natal Shadow's own bonus. Although the shadow has the same origin as Bai Yi, all the data are completely different. It can be said that the attributes of Shadow even exceed those of many high-level professionals. Again, this water element clone's underwater attacks seem to have been reduced a lot. It is not as overbearing as on land, and it seems to be related to the fact that a large part of the impact is neutralized by the ocean. This water element benefits from water, but being in water also has some disadvantages. But, after all, the water element clone is still a super powerful unknown boss. This charged attack only took him less than 2 seconds. This attack has just been struck. The next attack will fall immediately. But before the attack could arrive, dozens of shadows quietly emerged, forming a black web in the seawater to resist external forces. It is the Shadow Naga and the Shadow Element. All the shadows at this time cannot be dispatched, and shadow exchange requires a lot of shadows. These shadows, after only blocking the attack for less than a moment, the shadows were instantly dispersed by the tyrannical attack and wiped out. Your shadow subordinate, Shadow Sea Spirit Warrior, is dead. Your shadow subordinate, Shadow Naga, is dead. Your shadow subordinate, Shadow Sea Spirit Warrior, is dead. The invisible water column strikes again. In silence, the shadow suffered several more attacks, and this time the right half of the shadow completely dissipated. But the attacks in Shadow's hands never stopped. Every swing of the ancient king's short thorn caused indelible damage to the core of the water element. Trade injury for injury, kill for kill. Above, charged attacks in the water followed one after another. Below, the short thorn in the shadow's hand was waving continuously, and afterimages flashed. They used all their strength, and neither side held back even the slightest bit. Excellent performance every time, but in terms of blood volume and shadow, this unknown boss water element core cannot be compared. Up to nearly 1,000 attacks. Each attack can reach nearly 100,000, and the accumulated damage is not enough to destroy it. Before this, as expected by Shadow, his body, which had less than 200,000 health even though it received multiple bonuses, could not hold on after all. With one fierce water element attack after another, the body made of Shadow completely dissipated. It's like it doesn't exist. It's like flying paper ash, disappearing bit by bit in midair. The core of the water element seemed to have eyes. Being able to see this scene, the entire carapace trembled, as if in joy. Bang bang. Single quote. Without the shadow's continuous attack, the cracks in the core of the water element. He is making a miraculous recovery. The cracks are gradually recovering. Although they are not very obvious, they are indeed recovering. Turn out to be the reason why the shadow's thousands of attacks and immeasurable damage did not break it into pieces. It's because this water element core is repairing the body all the time. At this time, the core of the water element slightly recovered, and he seemed to suddenly notice something. His whole core was shaking violently. The silt and sea sand under the seabed are filled with it. What did it observe? The enemy that had just dissipated in front of me, actually condensed back to its original state. Just see. The almost dissipated shadow, like the sparks of a broken candle meeting dry grass, expanded instantly. Threads of shadow spread instantly. In less than a blink of an eye, he instantly transformed into a human form. Who else could it be but the shadow? Before the water element core could react, even the clone above had no time to mobilize. Without any extra delay, Shadow picked up the ancient king's thorn next to him with a swipe of his hand, and instantly launched an attack on the water element's core that had not recovered much. Even with deep water pressure, even if the light is dim, Shadow's hand attacked, but it also hit the core of the water element without fail. Attack key parts, triggering a super critical hit, causing water element core HP 89480. Closing square bracket. Attack key parts, triggering a super critical hit, causing water element core HP 95852. Closing square bracket. Attack key parts, triggering a super critical hit, causing water element core HP 85820. Closing square bracket. Opening square bracket, closing square bracket. The water element core was a little stunned. There was no counterattack for a long time. It couldn't understand why the enemy in front of it recovered instantly. So what's the point of the previous attacks it launched? But out of instinct, the water element clone sitting above still launched a counterattack. A series of powerful currents hit the Shadow's body. The ancient king's short thorn in Shadow's hand also attacked resolutely and frequently. That's all. Both sides were like gladiators fighting to the death, both releasing all their power on the other side. Finally, this endless battle has finally come to an end. The blood volume of the monster water element core is lower than 5% and enters the dying state. Near death, physical fitness can only exert less than 10%. Opening square bracket, closing square bracket. Kill monster water element core, BO SS level, experience plus 986 W1480. Closing square bracket. Congratulations on reaching level 28. Closing square bracket. Congratulations on reaching level 29. Closing square bracket. Congratulations on reaching level 30. Closing square bracket. Congratulations on reaching level 30. You will get an opportunity to upgrade your professional skills, which you can use. Congratulations on reaching level 31. Closing square bracket. Congratulations on reaching level 32. Closing square bracket. Congratulations on reaching level 33. Closing square bracket. Just like being infected by a virus, the upgrade prompts are refreshing like crazy. Above the sea, the shadow giant lifted Bai Yi, who was constantly undulating in the water. It ended in an instant, leaving Bai Yi with no time to react. At this moment, the two water element avatars who were chasing him turned into unconscious super huge water balls and smashed on the sea surface, causing the sea to set off waves one after another. This is not the most important thing. Bai Yi cleverly used shadow exchange to avoid these interferences. What made Bai Yi fall into a daze the most? This is a somewhat outrageous upgrade tip. 6 upgrade tips in a row. What is this concept? If ordinary people were to upgrade little by little, it would probably take years to upgrade. Moreover, some have poor talent. It is not uncommon to be unable to upgrade from level 28 to level 33 after several years or even more than 10 years. And this terrifying level jump. Did it actually come true this day? If others knew about it, they would probably stare out their eyes. From Bai Yi's perspective, he just killed an unknown boss and didn't even participate in the battle. But in the eyes of others, this unknown boss represents mystery and death if touched. The professional who discovers the unknown boss is the pioneer, the one who can survive the unknown boss's minions and make it public. But they may have never been the first ones to discover it. The same is true for the so-called survivor bias. People simply don't know how many more people will die at the hands of the unknown boss before this group of people discovers the unknown boss. Maybe hundreds, maybe more. The unknown boss of Tidal Disaster has now been discovered and killed by Bai Yi. Just discovering it is extremely difficult, let alone killing it without any information. This is something no ordinary professional can do. Even the well-trained team of super elite professionals have to consider whether they are qualified or not. So, Bai Yi's astronomical experience gain of nearly 1 million yuan is unexpected, but it is also reasonable. Such a terrifying experience. If I keep killing Naga sirens, how many will I have to kill? If you don't mention the experience reduction, you will have to kill at least 100 of them, but even professionals of the same level need to form a team of 5 to ensure a perfect kill. If 5 people form a team, if you kill 10 of them in one day, it will take almost a whole year to gain such a huge amount of experience. But this is also the optimal situation. Who can guarantee that there will be no accidents? A perfect kill every time. Find and kill 10 of them every day. In short, Bai Yi has gained such a huge amount of experience, which is quite explosive in the entire professional circle. At this time, Bai Yi looked at the frequent upgrade prompts and just came to his senses. He shook his head, put aside his complicated thoughts, and started to do the first thing. And this thing, it's not about looking at your own dashboard, nor about improving your skills. But, fetch that water element up. Bai Yi waved his hand and immediately gave the order. That's right, it is to salvage the broken water element core. Just kidding, how could you not try to transform a terrifying boss of this level into a shadow subordinate? Except for all mechanical bodies, as long as they are rated as monsters by the professional system, Bai Yi cannot extract them as shadow minions. Just imagine, what would it be like if such a terrifying boss became his subordinate? Not long after, when Bai Yi gave the order, the group of shadow Naga and elements floating on the sea surface and in the sea immediately took action. Salvage the core of the water element that is completely broken and the light has dissipated. This action took a lot of time. Good thing. The time limit for shadow extraction has not been exceeded, otherwise Bai Yi might not be able to sleep. The original island. The tide has receded, and the area has returned to a small piece of land and a beach, but it's just a little wet and muddy. Bai Yi stood here, looking at the broken core of water elements that continued to float from under the sea. Below are several shadow Naga dragging it, and a dozen shadow elements are surrounding it, stabilizing the whole thing from collapsing. Soon, the entire core was lifted up. While splashing a little bit of water, the entire water element core, including the carapace, completely caught Bai Yi's eyes. Without wasting any time, Bai Yi directly activated his professional skills. Shadow extraction. Next moment, the shadow began to circle around the center and began to rotate continuously. As dazzling as a kaleidoscope. It is simply a dark ocean whirlpool. The vortex rotated, and shadows floated into the air, forming a semi-virtual upside-down triangle. Immediately afterwards, in silence, a whole body was quickly formed during the period. Just like the Rubik's Cube has completed the last step, everything seems to be natural. One that is full of beauty at first glance. But upon closer inspection, a monster that doesn't seem to exist is born. Clang. Single quote. Its appearance directly smashed into pieces the remains of the water element core that was blocking it above. After smashing into pieces, the core body slowly floated in the air. The whole thing is as tall as a person. Twisted and grotesque triangular shapes appear on all 4 sides. If you want to call it, you can only use an academic tone to call it the complete form composed of the Penrose triangle. If you use the tone of ordinary people, you can only say bullshit. The core of the water element, which was originally stable at the bottom of the sea, was extracted from the shadow and transformed into a shadow subordinate. Miraculously, he has the ability to float in midair. Bai Yi sees all this in his eyes. Perhaps the shadow men he extracted have progressed beyond their original bodies. Perhaps it is related to the improvement of each professional skill. Or maybe, only as he becomes more powerful, the shadows he extracts will evolve more and more. But none of this is very important to Bai Yi. The most critical thing at this time is the new shadow qualities that Bai Yi can't help but want to check out. With a thought in his mind, the investigation was carried out instantly. Shadows Men. Water of Shadow, OSS level. Level 54. HP, 288W, 288W. Comprehensive attack power, 0. Skills. A level, group thinking, S level, water transformation, B+ level, water healing, C level, shock wave. Cluster thinking. Thinking that relates all water forms, one thought transforms all things, and all things are integrated. Transformation of water. Has the ability to initially control water, and can attach thoughts to it, transforming into a separate individual, and its individual strength is related to the attached thoughts. Water healing. Absorbing the surrounding seawater can restore your body to a certain extent. Seeing the introduction of these powerful skills, Bai Yi's eyes were opened. A skill that I don't have much exposure to. This time, I actually saw such an exaggerated skill effect directly. S levels water transformation, no wonder it can form such a brutal fighting force in the ocean, and is even immune to physical attacks. Besides, this B+ level water healing doesn't feel like much. But the recovery speed is really terrifying. Just thinking about how long the shadow has been attacking, it is not difficult to know how terrifying the recovery speed is hidden under this B+ grade appearance. After getting this shadow water, Bai Yi's first feeling was excitement and excitement. It was as if I was playing a game and usually only found some high-quality junk equipment, but now I suddenly picked up dazzling legendary quality equipment. But after thinking about it, Bai Yi quickly calmed down. This shadow water. The advantage is great, but the conditions for launching it are. Chapter 61. If you want to fully utilize these advantages, you need a certain condition. That is, there needs to be water. That's right. After Bai Yi was overjoyed, he quietly discovered the biggest flaw of this shadow water. Don't look at his skills, which are all incredible. He can control the seawater at every turn, and mobilize 3 powerful clones with high attack and immunity, and he can also replenish his blood very quickly. But, if there is no water, the whole thing will be a big iron shell with 2 million health and 0 attack. The thought of this, Bai Yi couldn't help but have a headache. If we fight in a place without water in the future, this shadow water will not be of much use. Is it possible to bring 2 buckets of water for it every time in the future? This is no joke. After thinking about it, Bai Yi waved his hand and stopped thinking about it. Looking at the shadow water a few inches above the ground, Bai Yi discovered that there were tiny water columns holding it up. If you don't look carefully, you really can't see it. Turn out to be. This shadow water absorbs a small amount of moisture from the humid air and gathers it into a state that can support itself. Seeing this, Bai Yi couldn't help but suspect that the IQ of this shadow water might be much higher than the original water element core. As the saying goes, youth is better than master, is better than master. Ignoring the shadow water, Bai Yi focused on himself. Check the panel, Bai Yi thought in his mind. The next moment, the professional system received instructions to display Bai Yi's own data and map it in front of him. Player, Bai Yi. Occupation, King of Shadows. Uniqueness. Level 33, 62W, 216W. HP, 75,710, 75,710. Basic attack power, 2000 plus. Spirit, 330. Equipment, Walker's Dagger, Poisoned Flying Thorn, Critical Damage Kunai, Ancient King Short Thorn. Shadow's subordinates. Natal Shadow only, Shadow Water, Shadow Naga X34, Shadow Element X212, Black Barden, Shadow Giant, Shadow Null X137. Skills. Shadow Extraction, Rank 1, Kingdom of Shadows, Rank 3, Natal Shadow, Rank 3, King's Domain, Full Level, Shadow Exchange, Full Level. Congratulations on reaching level 30, you will get an opportunity to upgrade your professional skills, which you can use. Seeing that his attributes have improved a lot, Bai Yi feels very satisfied. The last time I had this feeling was when I upgraded dozens of attributes in a game called Old Toho. Look at this time's professional skills and opportunities to improve your level. Bai Yi rarely hesitated. Directly, click on Kingdom of Shadows, which is already rank 3. This is due to Bai Yi's intuition. This professional skill can greatly affect the strength of the shadows. In the beginning, it was just an inconspicuous extra-dimensional space. The only function is to store the shadows in it, and they can be summoned instantly when needed. But as it reaches rank 2, it gains the function of restoring the injuries of the shadows. Although the current effect of rank 3 is not great, and the improvement of rank 4 may not satisfy him, Bai Yi has an idea in his mind, that is, if this professional skill is improved to a certain level, it will definitely cause a qualitative change. Absolutely. Sure enough, after upgrading this skill, Bai Yi checked the effect of rank 1 in advance. He immediately agreed with his previous idea. Upgraded successfully. Kingdom of Shadows rank 3, right pointing arrow. Kingdom of Shadows rank 4. Kingdom of Shadows rank 4, a different dimension where the shadow men hide in any shadow. They can gradually return to their peak state over time. The shadow recovery speed is greatly accelerated. Living in it can quickly restore injuries. Opening square bracket, closing square bracket. Previewing the rank 1 effect. Kingdom of Shadows rank 5, temporarily displayed. Effect. Shadow's minions hide in a different dimension in any shadow. Living in it can quickly recover from injuries. At the same time, Shadow's minions will obtain the strength enhancement effect. Strength improvement. Based on the king's will to become stronger, based on the body structure of the shadows in the Kingdom of Shadows will absorb the shadows of different dimensions to be gradually strengthened. Additional, those who have not reached the king's strength will be strengthened 200 times faster %. Seeing this scene, Bai Yi nodded thoughtfully. As he expected. The current rank 4 Kingdom of Shadows only maximizes the recovery speed of the shadows. But rank 5 has not yet been obtained. This is the real qualitative change. In the past, Bai Yi's shadow army would replace the weak ones with a new batch of powerful shadows. After all, the capacity of Kingdom of Shadows is limited, and it is impossible to carry all the shadow minions with you. But the most crucial point. That is the extracted shadow subordinate. When it appears, it is destined to remain at that moment. For example, Shadow's subordinate, Black Barton, is powerful, tall, and possesses a wealth of skills. But its level 35 level will not change. When he was transferred into Shadow, he was at level 35, and he will always be at this level. His strength will not change except for external factors. But, if this Kingdom of Shadows is promoted to rank 5, it will break through this boundary and usher in an improvement in strength. And, there is still no need to gain experience for this improvement. In other words, as long as the minions of Shadow live in the different dimension of Kingdom of Shadows, they can become stronger. You can become stronger just by lying down. This news was undoubtedly extremely shocking in Bai Yi's eyes. But the good news is that we know the effect of rank 5 Kingdom of Shadows. The bad news is that it is still in rank 4. In this case, then upgrade to level 35 as soon as possible and upgrade Kingdom of Shadows. At this point, Bai Yi set a trivial goal and moved towards it. And bear the brunt of it. Just kill a lot of monsters. Those elemental sea spirits are presumably the water transformation, previously created by the boss's water element core. Now that the boss is gone, these attached monsters should also be gone. Bai Yi doesn't know if this boss will be refreshed. But what we know is that there may not be a second water element core in this copy for the time being. There are thousands of mobs in the dungeon. But when it comes to boss, they are really rare and rare. If you were an ordinary professional, it would be a rare thing to encounter an elite monster. After a casual glance, Bai Yi focused on the shadow water. This copy, it's called Tidal Disaster and it's an ocean-specific dungeon. And isn't Bai Yi's newly acquired subordinate, Shadow Water, its special show here? There was an unknown boss water element before. Later there is a new subordinate Shadow Water. There is not much essential difference between the two. And, if anyone can be called the true boss in this dungeon, then probably only the current Shadow Water is qualified. The decision is yours. Shadow Water, use the skill, Water Transformation. Bai Yi waved his hand and gave instructions like a trainer. When it comes to which species has the greatest imagination, although humans may not dare to claim to be the first, there is absolutely no problem in ranking the top ones. No, thinking about the previous water incarnations, both elements and sea spirits had entities, while the water element clone had no entity, and was extremely large in size and range. The only difference between them is that one can be attacked, but the other cannot be attacked. So, Bai Yi preliminarily inferred that the shape-shifting energy of water can be divided into two categories. And Bai Yi's idea, just let the water of shadow combine the two to see if any strange changes can occur. Next moment, as Bai Yi's order was issued, the shadow water slowly began to move. An invisible thought spread out, and the moment it came into contact with the sea water, it immediately merged into it. Like a drop of ink dripping into the entire lotus pond, it began to spread quickly. Invisible waves are rising and falling. Finally, the surrounding tens of meters of seawater have been rendered completely, and are completely controlled by the shadow water. Suddenly, the entire sea surface rose directly, and a magnificent picture suddenly appeared in front of our eyes. I saw that wherever my eyes went, the sea surface began to move directly across the entire block. It's almost like a horizontal version of Moses's parting of the sea. Wow! Single quote. Wow! Single quote. Huge air currents blowing everywhere, carrying a somewhat fresh sea breeze. Immediately afterwards, the nearby seawater rushed to the missing location, and the sea surface returned to its original state in an instant. Only, some distance above this, a large expanse of seawater floats unexpectedly, covering an area as large as a basketball court. This cubic piece of seawater tilted slowly, lowering towards Bai Yi as if surrendering. Bai Yi didn't waste any time and stepped on it directly. What's a little surprising is that it doesn't feel like solid ground, nor does it feel like treading water. If you have to say it, it's more like stepping on a bouncy castle, a plastic water bed, or a looser non-Newtonian fluid. But there is nothing wrong with that. Bai Yi truly stepped on it, stepping on the cubic sea surface affected by the skill water transformation. Not bad. Bai Yi raised his eyebrows, and a smile flashed across his face. Immediately, his eyes became a little serious. It's time to upgrade. With a thought, hundreds of shadow elements and Nagas all moved out. Shadow Water's skill water transformation has not stopped yet. After gathering a cubic sea surface, it continues to create independent individuals. It is worth mentioning that these water incarnations are still called Elemental Warrior, Elemental Sea Spirit, Water Elemental Consciousness. They are not a member of the shadows at all, but they belong to Bai Yi's men and cannot be killed and gain experience. The efficiency of these incarnations is not as high as that of Shadow. But in this dungeon, under their special conditions, the traveling speed is pretty good. Not long after, one after another, the Naga sirens were driven up, with injuries all over their bodies. They were obviously forced to come here. They were constantly attacked, and the enemy was difficult to identify in the sea, so they had to flee. But under the guidance of these hydration forms, this group of Naga sea monsters was further forced to this island. What awaits them is the siege and massacre by the shadows. The other side, 2 water element clones were created and dived into the water to start hunting. Under constant hunting from both sides, the kill prompt in front of Bai Yi made him have no intention of stopping for a moment. Kill the monster Naga Siren, experience +11 W 8860. Kill the monster Naga Siren, experience +11 W 8860. Kill the monster Naga Siren, experience +11 W 8860. Kill the monster Naga Siren. Drops to be picked up. Title: Fish Scales, Siren's Eyes. Looking at the series of prompts, Bai Yi felt extremely comfortable. It's time to say it or not. It's still nice to just brush it up. A seat extends out on the cubic sea surface, and Bai Yi reclines on it, with a slightly comfortable look on his face. Isn't this more fun than forming a team? Isn't it easier than forming a team? Hang up and upgrade, it's comfortable. Within a few minutes, Bai Yi received the system prompt. Congratulations on reaching level 34. Closing square bracket. Bai Yi raised his eyes while he was resting. The upgrade speed was really fast. It's like going back to the beginning of level 2 after killing a few iron rats. Bai Yi ignored it and allowed his men to continue hunting. Less than half a moment later, the professional system sent another prompt. Congratulations on reaching level 35. Closing square bracket. Congratulations on reaching level 35. You will get an opportunity to upgrade your professional skills, which you can use. Upgrade Kingdom of Shadows. Bai Yi raised his eyelids slightly and used this promotion opportunity directly on his professional skill, Kingdom of Shadows. Kingdom of Shadows, rank 4, right pointing arrow. Kingdom of Shadows, rank 5. Kingdom of Shadows, rank 5, a different dimension where the shadow men hide in any shadow. Living in it can quickly recover from injuries. At the same time, the shadow men will obtain the strength enhancement effect. Just got promoted for the first time. Bai Yi arranged for many shadows to enter the kingdom of shadows. Level 28 ninjas, level 30 shadow giants, level 35 black barden, and all the shadow men of all sizes were packed in. Their role is not small. But unfortunately, the level can no longer keep up with today's Bai Yi. Being able to obtain the effect of improving strength is really a rare benefit. Without these shadows on the sea, hunting can still maintain this speed and progress. After all, with such a powerful level 54 being as shadow water, it is difficult to even think about taking off. Dozens or hundreds of water forms, as well as the ever-increasing number of shadow Naga, are the main players in this experience feast. The most critical thing, those two water element clones are not only powerful in battle, but also immune to all physical attacks. To level up here, you can simply ignore all obstacles. After killing and injuring dozens more shadow Nagas, a change finally occurred in the sea. The pale bloodstains filled the sea, causing a boss hidden in Haiyang to stop restraining himself. And it is the boss that this copy deserves, King Naga. Just see, it makes an imposing debut. But I quietly discovered. It seems, they are not the combined enemies of these two water element clones. On an island in the sea not far away, the monster on an old stone chair was no longer sleeping, his eyes suddenly opened directly, and his eyes were full of anger. In its perception, its people, namely groups of Naga sea monsters in the sea, are being continuously killed. And it, being dubbed the Naga King, by the entire ethnic group cannot sit idly by after all. Originating from the bond between blood, it awakens again. Among the professionals who once challenged it, some succeeded in defeating it, causing its consciousness to fall into a deep sleep, while others were killed by it due to overestimation of their abilities. But there is no doubt about one thing, that is King Naga's own strength. Always stay confident, but today, the confidence it has always maintained is about to evaporate. Thump. Single quote. King Naga jumped into the sea and his body was wet again, making it seem to have returned to its peak state. The majestic body, which is 3 meters high, looks like a flexible finless porpoise in the water. Although she has a strong body, she is very different from ordinary Nagas. The fierce fish face, the completely humanoid figure, and the silvery dark green scales all show its extraordinariness at all times. Finally, after King Naga sniffed the smell of blood in the sea water, he accurately found the source of the killing. Look up. By coincidence, it saw a human being whose eyes happened to meet. At this moment, the other party's eyes looked at it at the same time. This moment, King Naga felt trembling all over, as if his underwear had been seen through, and he felt inexplicably palpitating. Little did I know, the moment you see it, it is displayed with detailed data. Monster. Naga King, Bo SS level. Level 42. HP. 22W 8420, 22W 8420. Comprehensive attack power, 2000 plus. Skills, B level, Roar of Anger, B plus level, Burning Potential. At the same time, after King Naga saw this human suddenly having palpitations, a sudden crisis struck his heart. Looking back, in the midair on the left and right sides, the huge water droplets that could not be seen ended were staring at it like a gaze. Single quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark. Single quote. King Naga's pupils trembled like an earthquake, and he was suddenly horrified. Before he could say anything, he was suddenly attacked. I don't know when. The water element clones that had already gathered in midair immediately released the charged attack instantly. Aha! Single quote. Aha! Single quote. 2 majestic water pillars were fired directly, and the precise attack hit the exposed half of King Naga's head. Attack hits key parts, causing a critical hit, causing Naga King, Bo SS level, HP 32357. Closing square bracket. Attack hits key parts, causing a critical hit, causing Naga King, Bo SS level, HP 32582. Closing square bracket. The ferocious water flow went straight to his head, instantly making King Naga feel dizzy. Only the figure of King Naga was seen. It was directly hit and fell 10 meters into the sea. It was floating in the sea in a daze. It could only describe its mood at this moment as confusion. For a moment, he was unable to make any counterattack. It is also at this moment. The water column once again accumulated strength and suddenly spurted out. Attack hits key parts, causing a critical hit, causing Naga King OSS level HP 27237. Closing square bracket. Attack hits key parts, causing a critical hit, causing Naga King OSS level HP 27429. Closing square bracket. The sea water counteracted most of the attacks, but it could not stop the vast majority of the power. In these short few breaths, King Naga's blood volume had already lost several percent, and the entire fish was in bad condition. It subconsciously uses its own abilities. Burning the potential in the body has allowed his current combat power to reach its peak, and even increase again. Whenever this move was used in the past, it was a time to teach those arrogant professionals a painful lesson. But being forced to use it made him feel resentful. But it had just opened its muscles and veins, and was feeling hot all over. It saw that the two behemoths above the sea actually dived directly into the seawater in front of its eyes. Ben was above the sea, so he could still see clearly. If it is melted into the seawater, unless you take some time to identify it carefully, you will not be able to tell the difference between the seawater and this water element clone. Before the Naga King's skill burning potential is completed. Next attack. It has already hit. Boom. Single quote. Boom. Single quote. Attack hits key parts, causing a critical hit, causing Naga King OSS level HP 26258. Closing square bracket. Attack hits key parts, causing a critical hit, causing Naga King OSS level HP 27295. Closing square bracket. An attack from an unknown source, extremely painful damage, extremely compressed blood volume. These 3 points made King Naga feel at a loss for a moment. Roar. King Naga roared feebly, and seawater suddenly filled his mouth, making it feel uncomfortable. But at this time, it has no time to take care of this. This roar was accompanied by a powerful sound wave attack. In the past, this move was always unexpected, causing those professionals who offended it to bleed from both ears and temporarily lose their hearing. But after this sonic attack, what came was not the remarkable results that King Naga thought he had, but another water column attack. Boom. Single quote. Boom. Single quote. Attack hits key parts, causing a critical hit, causing Naga King OSS level HP 26385. Closing square bracket. Attack hits key parts, causing a critical hit, causing Naga King OSS level HP 27990. Closing square bracket. At this time, King Naga suddenly lost nearly half of his health. This made his body become weak, and even though he was angry in his heart, he could not produce any results. Seeing that he could not avenge his people, King Naga immediately chose to escape. Not even a thought of looking back. Even if it loses its life every time and its consciousness falls into a deep sleep for a period of time, it will wake up on the stone chair inexplicably. But death again and again is still something it doesn't want to face no matter what. But this is an act of escape. But it's still useless. The water jet attacks came again, even hitting the fins on its back directly. Attack key parts, causing super critical hits, causing Naga King OSS level HP 49480. Closing square bracket. Attack key parts, causing super critical hits, causing Naga King OSS level HP 44480. Closing square bracket. Opening square bracket, closing square bracket. There was not even a negative buff caused by low blood volume, and King Naga died directly in the ocean. Collecting the body for it. It's a Naga, but it's made of shadows. King Naga's consciousness fell into a deep sleep. I thought I would wake up on the stone chair again, but it never came. The opposite of. I subconsciously stood up from the dark whirlpool, and seemed to hear someone whispering in my ear. Stand up. In front of Bai Yi, a prompt appeared. Kill the monster Naga King OSS level experience plus 412 W2840. Closing square bracket. Congratulations on reaching level 36. Closing square bracket. But receiving this massive amount of experience points did not surprise Bai Yi at all. What Bai Yi was thinking about at this time was 4 million experience points is just enough to upgrade to level 1. Thinking of this, Bai Yi decisively opened his own panel and checked the experience requirements. Player. Bai Yi. Level 36 167 W 280 W. Seeing this, even Bai Yi, who frequently gained massive amounts of experience, felt a little lost. Nowadays, the experience requirements for each level are so high. And this was only in his eyes. If it were any other ordinary individual professional, how many monsters would it take to kill to advance to one level? How long will it take? He shook his head and stopped thinking about things that had nothing to do with him. Bai Yi looked down. Look at this newly born shadow. Here it is. This boss, King Naga, which is slightly inferior to the current highest combat power of Shadow Water, can be regarded as completely belonging to the Shadow Army. Bai Yi looked at the slightly changed Shadow Naga King in front of him, and couldn't say whether he was satisfied or not. The overall image of the Shadow Naga King, apart from the fixed feature of shadow construction, is that there are 2 rows of inverted bone spurs on the outside of its arms, and the fins on its back have become smaller and no longer so obvious. Besides, the aura of the entire boss of Shadow Naga King is not only slightly stronger than that of Naga King. Overall, there is an improvement, but not much. Shadow's Men. Shadow Naga King, OSS level. Level 42. HP, 34W 2630, 34W 2630. Comprehensive attack power, 11,990 plus. Skills, B level, Roar of Anger, B plus level, Burning Potential, C level, Fast Swimming in the Sea. Overall not bad. It's not a stretch. But here sits an apex level shadow who can create 3 super powerful clones. In contrast to the Shadow Water, don't these attributes of the Shadow Naga King seem mediocre? Calculate the time. It's almost time to force quit the copy. This last bit of time. Bai Yi had no intention of continuing to hunt monsters, but just ordered the shadows to assemble here. Some shadows with slightly poor overall attributes, Bai Yi simply left them in this dungeon. Although shadows can be upgraded now, they still need time to grow. It would be more appropriate to give these upgrade opportunities to those shadows who are already at a high level. After picking and choosing, Shadow collected all the shadows into the Kingdom of Shadows, and then returned to Bai Yi. His body shape changed. It turned into an ordinary shadow and clung to Bai Yi's feet. The last time in this dungeon was just like when I first came here, watching the constantly splashing waves, the still calm beach, and smelling the salty sea breeze in the air. The only thing that was different was the traces of the battle left behind. As time passed, Bai Yi's entire figure disappeared in this copy. The dungeon excludes all outsiders. No matter how powerful a professional is, he cannot stay in one dungeon forever. Outside the copy. Bai Yi appeared outside the copy in just a blink of an eye. After a moment of recovery, Bai Yi knew that he had left the dungeon and returned to Blue Star. I'm sorry, are you all still alive? 1, 2, 3. Are all here, all are here. I almost thought I wouldn't be able to get out, but it's okay. The loud noise was coming from the 5 Xiaohao brothers who had entered the dungeon together earlier. The first time they came out was to check the safety of the brothers around them. It was at the same time that they saw Bai Yi, who was entering and exiting the dungeon. Brother Bai, you are still alive. What are you talking about? It's too ugly. Brother Bai, are you not dead? I'm so convinced. Can each of you speak? How about you listen to what you say? Quote. The first moment they saw Bai Yi, several people were shocked that Bai Yi was safe and sound. I was so shocked that I couldn't even say some words. During this period, Qingwu even thought that Bai Yi could not survive the battle with the unknown boss. Ask yourself. The 5 Xiaohao brothers, and even passers-by who didn't like to talk, felt to some extent that Bai Yi would not survive. Just imagine. Among high levels, the attribute gap at each level is huge, especially between professionals and boss. Even a 5-person team of the same level may not be able to defeat an equal boss. What's more, the level gap is so huge. Still a single brush. When they thought of this, the shock of the 5 Xiaohao brothers slowly turned into confusion. Qingde couldn't help but asked curiously. Brother Bai, how did you survive? Where is that unknown boss? Yeah, haven't you been caught up? Thinking about that cloudy aura and that terrifying whirlpool on the sea makes me a little scared. Quote. As he said this, several people's eyes couldn't help but stay more on Bai Yi. Surrounded by several people watching, Bai Yi also said bluntly. Died. As soon as they heard these 2 words, the faces of the 5 Xiaohao brothers suddenly changed, as if they had eaten a 9-turn large intestine with added ingredients. These 2 short words sounded different to everyone's ears. Dead. Wait, what do you mean? Why can't my mind turn around? Could it be? Is it nothing? If you fart, let it go. Could it be that Brother Bai had a backup plan and resurrected directly from the dead? That's why the boss said that because he survived. Oh, that makes sense. So that's what it is. Quote. Listening to the people talking more and more outrageously, Bai Yi twitched the corner of his eye and explained casually. The boss is dead. Quote. Quote. The 5 Xiaohao brothers were all shocked. They were so horrified that they were speechless. The whole hall became quiet for a while. Bai Yi felt helpless, waved his hand, and walked past several people. Everyone was shocked for a long time, and it took them a long time to come back to their senses. The scheduled aircraft to and from the Hengxia Alliance has been parked outside the building, waiting for its second takeoff. Get on the aircraft. The 5 Xiaohao brothers, who were often noisy, surprisingly showed a quiet side. But just by looking at them, you can tell that these people are holding back something uncomfortable. What he was holding back was naturally curiosity. Curiosity about how Bai Yi survived, and even more curiosity about what Bai Yi meant when he said the boss was dead. Thinking about it further, only Bai Yi's solo kill of the unknown boss has a reasonable rhythm. But, before entering the dungeon, how did a professional who was less than level 30 kill an unknown boss? That's a boss that even they can't detect. Seeing the expressions of these people who wanted to ask but were still holding back, Bai Yi also felt a little funny and said casually. If you have anything to ask, just ask. This time, it seemed to have stirred up the chatterbox of several people, and questions were shouted out excitedly. Brother Bai, how on earth did you do that? Quote. During this section of the road, Bai Yi continued to talk about these things. There were constant exclamations and doubts on the aircraft. Bai Yi didn't intend to tell all the points related to professional skills. Although he hates hiding something, but if he exposes all his things when he sees someone, that means there is something wrong with his brain. Are you talking about killing the boss directly? Talk about water element, that you can create 3 invincible clones. The real body is hidden under the sea. After all, these things are things that can be said or not. Bai Yi Xiao's noise is just a laugh. But this smile lingered directly in the minds of these brothers. The aircraft is not slow. Soon, Bai Yi and the others returned to the Hengxia Alliance built in the sky. After the first registration, all subsequent information was entered automatically, and several people on the aircraft successfully entered the Alliance. Next, staying in the dungeon for many hours made Bai Yi a little mentally exhausted. Although his body has become transcendent and his mental strength is higher than that of his peers, he still feels a little tired. Perhaps all of this can be attributed to one thing. Lazy. Yes, laziness makes people feel tired. Except for illness and injury, all suffering is basically dominated by emotions. At this time, Bai Yi was lying lazily on the sofa in his villa, thinking about it and ordering takeout. Picking up the black identity card and looking at it, several messages popped up. Commissioner Knight. I heard from my little apprentice, is there a near miss today? Closing square bracket. Qingji. Brother Bai, I've been thinking a lot today. I feel like we're holding you back, haha. I don't have anything to express. I'll treat you to dinner when I have time. Qingda University. My brothers don't have any thoughts, please bear with me. Qingwu. I originally wanted to go back and save you, but then. Bai Yi felt a little dizzy after seeing all these messages. He has not been good at social interaction since he was a child. In addition, he talks little to begin with, and once the aloof persona that others misunderstand is established, it is difficult for Bai Yi to break it. This situation has persisted until now, causing Bai Yi to adapt to his own environment. This time, there are so many people around, but I feel a little uncomfortable. Bai Yi rubbed his eyebrows and replied selectively one by one. Reply completed. I was also a little hungry, so I clicked on the black ID card prompt, and found that the meals had already been placed in the villa. After taking the meal and having dinner casually, Bai Yi took a rest. Early morning. The black identity card vibrated and flickered. Bai Yi was awakened by this prompt. Commissioner Knight, the situation in the dungeon yesterday was indeed a bit special. There is a meeting that requires you to come. I will pick you up later. Committee Knight. Apart from me, 6 of the 36 committee members participated. Commissioner Knight. By the way, the deputy leader will also pay attention to this matter. Bai Yi, who was a little sleepy at first, couldn't help but wake up a little. What's going on? What meeting are you attending? How many members of the 36th committee are here? 7. Isn't this equivalent to coming 1/5 of the time? The mainstay of the entire alliance's great accomplishment. Besides, will the deputy leader also pay attention? What is this? Is it necessary to mobilize troops and mobilize people like this? Thinking about it, Bai Yi raised his eyebrows and soon stopped taking these things to heart. Big things must be done. If you really can't do it, the worst thing you can do is just spread your hands and just live in peace with the world. The main theme is a person who shirks responsibility and lies flat. There is nothing else but a good attitude. We have survived the strong wind and waves for so long. I can't even count the bosses who have surpassed the level. Can you still be scared by this small meeting? Thinking. Bai Yi washed up calmly, ordered some fruits and watched TV series for a while in his spare time. Not long after, there was a knock on the door, and Commissioner Knight's stiffness came from the outside world. Here, get ready, let's go. Commissioner Yi asked. Bai Yi opened the door and went out with him. Walked to the main street. With a casual move from Commissioner Yi, a dark blue chariot was summoned from the storage backpack. Different from traditional motorcycles, this chariot is more like a wheel. The outer shell is a structure that can rotate 360 degrees, and the inner part is the driving position. Some are similar to the chariot in the movie, Men in Black, that Bai Yi watched in his previous life. A bit handsome, Bai Yi couldn't help but sigh. Like it, committee member Yi seemed to see a like-minded person. Ever since he learned about this boy Bai Yi, committee member Yi had some indescribable affection for him. Inexplicably, he always felt that this kid Bai Yi could become a great person, and he would definitely be worthy of a little training now. Hearing Commissioner Knight's inquiry, Bai Yi was not embarrassed at all and nodded appreciatively. As long as it's a man. I'm afraid most of them will appreciate it, right? Then I'll give you one. Commissioner Yi waved his hand again, and a chariot of the same style appeared next to him. But something is different. The other car has a bright green theme with black accents, but otherwise it's the same. Thank you very much. Bai Yi nodded towards Commissioner Yi without any politeness. You're welcome. Commissioner Yi didn't look back and rode directly on the dark blue chariot. In Committee Knight's knowledge, there is no professional who cannot ride a vehicle. In vocational schools, most of these are elective courses. You can choose 8 out of 16 courses, and you can't graduate if you don't complete them. But for Bai Yi, he really hasn't learned anything. In the final analysis, what does this body have to do with the Bai Yi in the parallel world that he has learned from being a professional? But the good thing is, nowadays, the response speed of Transcendent and the simple and easy to understand operating system of this tank. Bai Yi can drive it easily as soon as he gets started. But speaking of proficiency, I can't say that I can get used to it if I drive it for a while. Then, the night committee member was driving in front, and Bai Yi was following closely behind. After a moment or so, the two came to a building. Just by getting close to this building, you can feel that it is a bit unusual. When Bai Yi saw the dragon-shaped shadow, now that he thinks about it, this building seems to be just below the dragon head. If you think about it, you will know that it is an important building. The two skillfully put the chariot into the storage backpack, and then walked into the tall building in front of them. After getting on the elevator, Commissioner Yi skillfully swiped his identity card and said softly, "Room AAA on the 52nd floor." The voice of an intelligent system made by Taoist class sounded. The electronically synthesized voice couldn't be more obvious. Identity confirmation, please wait. Running. Arrived. Without feeling the passage of time, I had already arrived at the designated floor in its room. Bai Yi couldn't help but sigh. In this world, technology has obviously developed a lot because of some specific professionals. Suddenly, across the elevator door, a middle-aged voice sounded in the room. I've heard the name of the young hero for a long time, please come in. Hear it first, see him later. But the person who came was not the other party, but Bai Yi. The night committee member beside him slowly opened the simple door, and a special room came into view. The room was very spacious, but there were only less than 10 people sitting there. It is no exaggeration to say that this venue is enough for a dinner party and a banquet. The whole thing is like a shortened corridor. There was a long table in the middle covered with a white tablecloth, with several people sitting on each side. There are large pieces of virtual glass on both sides of the room. The virtual glass perfectly simulates the sun's illumination and the outside scene, making the room appear full of natural light and less dark and inconsistent. Bai Yi and committee member Tong Ye stepped into it. As soon as I got closer, Bai Yi moved his nose and smelled some rust. Seeing Bai Yi's actions, one person on the seat nodded towards Bai Yi and said kindly, "I just killed a beast, it smells a bit, don't blame me." This explanation naturally attracted Bai Yi's attention. Looking at the man, Bai Yi subconsciously used the detection method. Player: Fang Xingwang. Profession: closing square bracket. Grade: Class. HP: closing square bracket. Basic attack power. Closing square bracket. At first glance, except for the name, it's basically all question marks. It is conceivable that the opponent is far beyond Bai Yi's current strength. Take another look at Fang Xingwang. The upper body seems to be in regular clothes, but if you pay more attention, you will find out. What he was wearing was nothing like regular clothes. There was a faint red and black armor surrounding it, and the bright red four-clawed python pattern on it seemed to be crawling slowly. And that rusty smell of blood came from him. On the phantom armor, you can see some blood stains that cannot be erased, and those blood stains are still boiling secretly. Bai Yi slowly looked away. He now has a different feeling, like a young author who accidentally participated in the National Authors Congress and had dinner with a lot of platinum and great writers. Even though he might be able to become an equal being, so far, the gap is still huge. Several images flashed through Bai Yi's mind. Husky Wolf Pack. The street gangster and the boxing champion are arm in arm. Students and deans are brothers. We cannot say that they are completely unrelated, we can only say that they are exactly the same. Don't be nervous, they have something to ask you for. Commissioner Yi reminded in his ear. As if he was worried that Bai Yi still couldn't let go, committee member Yi added. They should be the ones who are nervous. Upon hearing this reminder, Bai Yi raised his eyebrows and glanced at the people present. There are 3 committee members in each row on the left and right, making a total of 6. Some of them are as young as the night committee members, some are graceful, some are in middle age, and some are very old. But without exception, they all seemed to have a somewhat flattering smile, and they were mostly condescending towards Bai Yi. Although they hid it well, Bai Yi's insight was already beyond ordinary people. Even though he has never learned micro-expressions, he can still tell that these 6 committee members really have good attitudes. After carefully feeling these committee members, Bai Yi no longer felt any psychological burden. Rather, he had no pressure at all. After Commissioner Yi gave a few reminders, he felt relaxed again. He pulled a comfortable chair in front of him and sat down on it. The night committee member next to him chose a chair on the left and sat down. I've heard about it a long time ago. It's rare for the Dragon Kingdom to have another chosen person. Fang Xingwang praised without hesitation. Yes, our Dragon Kingdom can really secure its first place in the world. What luck, several committee members around him echoed, making Bai Yi confused for a moment. Where did these guys come from? He praised himself as soon as he came up. I heard that Commissioner Yi meant to ask for something from him. But Bai Yi really can't think of anything that these big bosses who are the mainstays of the Dragon Kingdom can ask for. The Dragon Kingdom has had a banquet culture since ancient times. I always find it easier to talk about things at the dinner table. Several mechanical arms stretched out from the simulated glass, filling the vacant positions on the long table with delicacies. Come on, when little brother Bai comes, there won't be a welcome party yet, right? Yes, this meal is enough to make up for it. Eat. Looking at these delicacies, Bai Yi became less calm. Not that he was greedy. But, looking at the attitudes of these people, Bai Yi became more and more confused about what was going on. Bai Yi didn't like this so-called banquet culture, and was a little unsure of what it was about, so he said bluntly. Commissioners, I'm going to be blunt. Come to me, what's going on? As soon as these words came out, The scene suddenly became a little quiet. Bai Yi almost thought that he had awakened the ability to suspend the world. PFF. Single quote. Suddenly, the only female committee member among the 6 laughed. You can't tell her age, but you can tell that she has a young woman's temperament. She doesn't look more than 35 years old. Before anyone could speak, she simply said with a smile, whatever I say, this child must say it directly. You guys, it's long past time to invite people to dinner. Fang Xingwang, a middle-aged member of the committee, blushed and pretended to cough. Ahem, stop talking, then we have something to talk about. The delivery of dishes through the simulated glass stopped abruptly and was quickly recovered as if they were being placed upside down. In just a few blinks, the entire table was completely white again. Directly in front of Bai Yi, the area that was originally a wall lit up instantly, and it seemed to have a structure similar to virtual glass. Wall screen switching. Instead, there is a world map. On it, it is centered on the Dragon Kingdom and embellished with surrounding countries. And in the remote sea area on the lower right side of Dragon Kingdom, a big key symbol is marked. This is, Bai Yi asked. Fang Xingwang slowly stood up, pointed at the key symbol, and said, this place is extremely important, and there is a room of vital things inside. But unfortunately, this newly born copy excludes the weak and the powerful, and all countries are watching. It can even be described as salivating and staring with eagerness. Listening to this explanation, Bai Yi's brows relaxed a little. So, is this why they beg themselves? If it's not just a copy, what's the point? Thinking of this, Bai Yi felt a little relieved. What did he think it was? That's it. Is this even a big deal? But soon, Fang Xingwang glanced at Bai Yi guiltily, and it was this look that made Bai Yi feel a little uncomfortable. Turning to look at Commissioner Knight. Commissioner Yi also had a strange expression on his face. This was the first time Bai Yi saw Commissioner Yi showing such an expression. 67. Honolulu Island Honolulu copy. This expression is rare to see among the 6 committee members at the same level as committee member Yi, let alone Bai Yi. See this expression. Naturally, this indicates that things are not as simple as Bai Yi thought before. It's just the next dungeon. It's very simple, right? Right. Bai Yi was a little skeptical, but still asked. Hear this. Commissioner Yi shook his head, his eyes full of unspeakable meaning. See here. Commissioner Fang Xingwang's expression changed, and he finally said everything he could say. I'll just say it straight. Only professionals from level 30 to level 40 can enter this dungeon. We have sent 159 professionals in the past 12 years. At first, many B-level and A-level professionals went there, but no news came back. Later on, we successively dispatched several prodigy professionals from S-level and even SS level. But they are, so far. Speaking of this, Commissioner Fang Xingwang accidentally looked at Bai Yi, and the words froze in his mouth for a moment. A long while, the last half of the sentence came out. Not returned. As soon as he heard this, Bai Yi immediately felt something was wrong. He said so. It turned out to be a dungeon with a temporary clearance rate of 0%, so no wonder he was asked to participate. After thinking about it, Bai Yi's face looked even weirder than that of the night committee member. Dissatisfaction seemed to be written on his face. The pass rate is 0%. You asked me to go. Are you kidding me? Seemingly sensing Bai Yi's mood, the young female committee member on the side comforted him, little brother, don't worry. As long as you go, Dragon Kingdom is willing to give you more than 5S level skill awakening scrolls. If you gain a lot, you may even get multiple opportunities to upgrade your skills. Upon hearing this, Bai Yi became energetic instantly. What? 5S level skill awakening scrolls? Are there multiple opportunities to upgrade skill levels? 5S level skill scrolls meant that countless people were grinding the boss, hoping for the pitiful explosion rate. It's not like Bai Yi has never exploded before. But that was entirely due to good luck, completely unexpected. And that is a purple quality skill scroll. The probability of awakening B-level skills is 68%, and A-level skills are 20%. And the probability of awakening the S-level for that purple quality skill is only a pitiful 6%. As for the S-level scroll mentioned by this young woman committee member, it goes without saying that the probability of awakening S-level skills must be 60% or even 80% or more. Otherwise, how could it be called an S-level skill scroll? Just think about it and you'll know. These 5 scrolls were produced with the blood and sweat of many people, and one can imagine the human resources used. And these 5 skill scrolls also mean 5 brand new S-level skills. You must know that although Bai Yi's current skills are all the most suitable professional skills, there are only a few of these skills in total. What does she say now? As long as you go to this dungeon and come back successfully, you can get 5 skills. After a little thought, it's not hard to remember. Bai Yi couldn't help but think of his first skill, summon replacement. This is a fairly average skill that cannot be said to be very powerful, but it cannot be said to be useless either. In his case, everything has changed. The transformation has become an unparalleled shadow swap. If this is the next task to enter the copy. After obtaining 5 skill awakening scrolls, will these 5 skills become professional skills that perfectly suit me? To know. As for the professional skills of his profession, King of Shadows, there is no one that is not perfect. Boom. Single quote. Thinking about it, my heart fell to the ground. Bai Yi couldn't help but think about the pros and cons, and subconsciously agreed to the job. But then I thought about it. With such a big reward, the risk is relative, right? Suddenly, Bai Yi frowned and couldn't help but ask. Can you tell me why you have to go? Can't you just go? This question is simple as why you sprain your feet when encountering a ghost in a ghost movie, or why you disobey the advice. No, you must go. If I couldn't enter, how could I let those young people go to such a dangerous place? Commissioner Fang Xingwang was extremely excited and looked somewhat uncontrollably angry. At last, his clenched hands dropped weakly, and he looked at Bai Yi before sitting back down. Bai Yi spit out 3 words and asked this question again. Why? Upon hearing this question, everyone present, including Commissioner Knight, looked gloomy and began to keep silent. After a long moment of solemnity, the young female committee member coughed lightly, which directly broke the silence present. Ahem, just say it. I think this child is worthy of being entrusted with this matter. After hearing this decision, the old committee member on the side quickly said. Inappropriate, don't mention it again, just tell me some news. The old man seemed to feel that there was something wrong, so he added another sentence. After listening, committee member Yi was a little melancholy. When he mentioned this matter, everyone present was solemn. Committee member Knight finally spoke. This copy involves the opening of the ultimate, and there is a key that the whole world longs for. I won't tell you too much. Turning around, Commissioner Yi looked at Bai Yi solemnly and said, you should be able to guess it with your intelligence. Bai Yi immediately had a question mark on his face. No, Yi Yufan, Counselor Yi, do you think highly of us? Although Bai Yi is not a stupid person, he is not so smart that he can brainstorm thousands of words of information just by hearing the word, ultimate, right? The words just fell. Commissioner Fang Xingwang took over, seeming a little ashamed to include. This copy is located on Honolulu Island in the American waters. Our dragon kingdom named it Honolulu. It completely deviates from the basic concept of a copy. There is no forced eviction setting in this place. That is to say, whether you enter the dungeon for 24 hours, 48 hours, or 72 hours, you will not be automatically excluded from the dungeon. Hearing this, Bai Yi looked a little confused. Then how should we get out? You're not going to ask me to go to a dungeon that's only accessible but not accessible, right? Immediately, Commissioner Fang Xingwang looked slightly embarrassed, and then spoke up, of course not. A professional Chi-Men divination master in the Alliance has calculated it with his skills. As long as he kills the boss of the Honolulu dungeon, he can take the key with him, come out. Bai Yi, if it can be calculated, do you know what level the boss is? Fang Xingwang, I don't know. The guy just finished calculating the copy method and vomited blood. Bai Yi, no, I don't even know the level of the boss. Is it really safe? But considering that no one has come out so far, it is not difficult to imagine how high the boss is. It can make 30 level 40 SS professionals unable to come back. Then the dungeon boss must be at least 50, or even above level 50, right? But the good thing is, there are many bosses that Bai Yi can kill by jumping through levels. As long as you give him enough time to gather shadow minions in the dungeon, he will kill you even at level 60, not to mention level 50. There was silence for a while. Bai Yi summarizes all the current information. It involves the ultimate opening, can't you say more? Everyone, including committee member Yi, nodded silently. Can't you go? The committee members nodded silently again. You can come out as long as you kill the boss, but you don't know the boss level. Nodding silently again. As long as you come out, you will be given 5S level skill scrolls. Are there any opportunities for skill level improvement? Nodding silently. Call. Single quote. Bai Yi took a deep breath. My dear, this is so like a black-hearted boss trying to spread the pie for his employees. Fortunately, Bai Yi has absolute confidence and can come out of this copy of Laoshi at will. This is equivalent to if you take the job, you will 100% get the reward regardless of whether you do it or not. Bai Yi would never refuse such a thing. At last, Bai Yi asked a question again. I have a clear idea. But I have one more question. Why so urgent? Yes, why so urgent? To say that he has an SSS level hidden profession, let alone unprecedented, can only be said to be extremely rare in the world and absolutely precious. But, what was the situation that forced Long Guo to let him go? The value of Bai Yi. Presumably everyone here knows this precious value better than Bai Yi himself. If nothing goes wrong, Bai Yi will be at the leader level of the Hengxia Alliance. How could these committee members not think clearly? This is not a dark way to kill Bai Yi, but for something that has to be done even more, Bai Yi must take this risk. Things that even SS level professionals can't do. These committee members believe it. Bai Yi, who has a hidden profession at SSS level, can do it. This is absolute confidence. What confidence? So confident that Bai Yi even doubted his self-confidence. Back to the question, why the rush? After a long time, Commissioner Feng Xingwang spoke slowly. Medicine has sent an SSS level professional to cooperate with an SS plus level professional from Neon Country to conquer the Honolulu Island dungeon, which is the Honolulu dungeon. If they succeed, the entire Dragon Kingdom and the entire world will be controlled by that person. Mentioning this, the 7 committee members couldn't help but remain silent. What about me? Bai Yi asked. Several committee members were attracted and couldn't help but look towards Bai Yi. Then if I succeed, I won't be able to contain the whole world. Hearing this question, Commissioner Yi couldn't help but smile and said bluntly, what's the harm in being restrained by your own people? This explanation. Bai Yi was a little surprised, he didn't expect this explanation. Being restrained by oneself, being restrained by one's own people, why not? I'll take this mission. Bai Yi nodded, stood up solemnly, and was about to go out. Seeing this scene, Commissioner Feng Xingwang was stunned for a moment, and then he seemed to remember something, and quickly stopped Bai Yi and said, wait. There is still some information that has not been revealed. Bai Yi just stood up and sat back down firmly. Please tell me. Bai Yi waved his hand and listened patiently. The simulation screen behind Commissioner Feng Xingwang was enlarged. What is presented is no longer the Dragon Kingdom, but all the countries in the world. This time, the biggest threat is the SSS level American professionals. The other 5 major countries in the world, including the Bear Country and the Sun Never Sets Country, have also recently involved many professionals. Among them, the Bear Country has good relations with our country and may be able to provide you with some help. Hearing this, Bai Yi couldn't help but have questions again. The 5 major countries in the world are also one of the common sense in the world. They are currently Blue Star's first country, the Dragon Country, the second country, the American Empire State, the third country, the Furry Bear Country, the fourth country, the Sun Never Sets Country, and the fifth country, Fallen Shi Kingdom. But, why didn't Falon Zigyu participate? Bai Yi's questions were quickly answered. Commissioner Knight beside him shook his head regretfully and added, there are some natural disasters in Farenshi, so I don't have time to participate. What kind of natural disaster? Earthquake, tsunami. This shouldn't be a problem for professionals, right? No, it's far more terrifying than I thought. It's a blessing that it didn't affect neighboring countries. Commissioner Yi said with surprise. After hearing this, Bai Yi stopped asking questions. After Commissioner Feng Xingwang added some information, the meeting came to an end. The last one to arrive was Bai Yi. And the first to leave was Bai Yi. After confirming that no remaining information was obtained, Bai Yi also left the meeting directly. The one who left with him was naturally the Night Committee member. After a few minutes, the map on the wall quietly disappeared, and then a Taoist shadow was reflected. The Taoist shadow slowly revealed its full face, and it was the deputy leader of the Hengxia Alliance. The deputy leader is just like the young woman committee member, and her age is indistinguishable. But it can be seen that he is also a member of Feng Xingwang, a man in his prime who is at the peak of his physical strength. His face was even more upright, but at this moment, he showed a bit of sadness. His voice slowly came from the surrounding walls. Hey, what a good boy. If he can't come back, it will be a great regret for the Dragon Kingdom. Commissioner Feng Xingwang comforted him. Deputy League, believe him, he will definitely be able to do it. If this child can come out, I will definitely give him the opportunity to upgrade his skills. Not only that, the whole country will also celebrate. But why didn't you come forward and say a few words just now? Quote. Hey, it was my decision. I have no face to face this child, no face to face him. Hengxia Alliance, Airport, aren't you going to fly the previous aircraft? Bai Yi asked after looking at the night committee member who was filling in the information. No, Navigator 2 does not have enough endurance to span more than 8,700 nautical miles. Oh, is that so? Bai Yi can easily think of the world map he saw before. The Honolulu copy is in the waters of the United States, which is located in the Pacific Ocean and is still far away from the neon lights. And in this map, the distance is very vast. Even if there are 2 more Dragon Kingdoms, they can still fill it up. At the staff level, Commissioner Yi completed a lot of procedures, and even applied for a 2-level review in his capacity. A few minutes later, a huge empty ship was heading this way. Its size alone was comparable to the size of a memorial stadium. Just by looking at it, Bai Yi unconsciously used the probe. Soon, a string of information is transmitted. Props, wide area silence number S2. Quality, Gold Plus. Durability, 84,923, 84,923. Shield value, /? Closing square bracket. Introduction. Even if it is only the 2nd Aviation Squadron on the main ship, it still has unimaginable performance. Seeing this surprisingly large spaceship, Bai Yi didn't act too exaggerated. Although it's the first time I've seen it. But I have seen all kinds of big winds and waves, and this mere spaceship does not seem too exaggerated. Just as Commissioner Knight said, his navigator couldn't fly the distance that only 2 Dragon Kingdoms could cover. It was more than 8,700 nautical miles, which was an unimaginably long distance. To know, Tang Monk, master and disciple, had 4 people to learn the scriptures, which was only 108,000 miles away. But in this 108,000 miles, I don't know how many hardships and ups and downs I have experienced. Nowadays, if he wants to cross most of the Pacific Ocean, let alone take out an aircraft ship, even if he brings the wide silence itself over, Bai Yi can only marvel at the generosity of the Han Sha Alliance. Just kidding, the first alliance of the mighty Dragon Kingdom is one of the best in the world. No matter what exaggerated things he does, Bai Yi will not be too exaggerated. It can be said that human nature is like this. Once you reach the height of your heart, you will not be too surprised no matter what you do. People are accustomed to brave men slaying evil dragons. After slaying the evil dragon, the hero turns into a dragon and is a bit mediocre. Only when the cross-dressing hero slays the evil dragon, abandoning the Tsunere princess and falling in love with the Furui dragon, may it make people shine and be quite surprised. Let's go, Commissioner Yi reminded, and then stepped forward. Although this sub-ship on the wide area silence is only a sub-ship, it is still capable enough. Yes, and it is abundant. A staircase controlled by an intelligence system unfolded, and the 2 slowly stood on it. The intelligence system started the next program and then slowly retracted the ladder, allowing the 2 people to smoothly enter the main body. Welcome to the landing ship. Single quote. Temporary program is being enabled, please wait. Single quote. A female-biased electronic synthesis sound sounded, making Bai Yi lament the bad taste of 2-dimensional architects who let the post-00 generation participate in the general project. But, don't say it yet, it's really interesting. This spaceship actually has its own virtual intelligence system, which is really amazing. But, it's just out of curiosity. Bai Yi didn't study it any further. After all, this spaceship is a subship of the Wide Silence and not an ordinary spaceship. It still has extremely strong combat effectiveness. Such an airship cannot be underestimated. Let's go, Commissioner Yi said calmly. Immediately, he stepped towards the main cabin. Bai Yi followed closely. After they entered the main cabin, the virtual screen appeared, and a line of text appeared on it. Please select your cockpit location. Single quote. Seeing this line of text, Bai Yi pondered for a moment, and then chose a location. Have you selected your seat cabin? Came the voice of Commissioner Knight. Bai Yi replied, okay. Commissioner Knight nodded. Our cockpit is on the left side of the main cabin. The speed of this airship is 3,000 meters per second. 3,000 meters per second. This speed is almost 9 times the speed of sound, and this is just the speed under normal conditions. This is really terrifying data at the transcendent level. After all, the destination this time is only over 8,700 nautical miles. But now, the speed of this spaceship is actually 3,000 meters per second, which is simply appalling. If it were an ordinary airplane, it would probably be thrown far away at such a speed. But it's normal to think about it. After all, it is a spaceship. If it can't even exert such a small speed, how can it be called a spaceship? Okay, Bai Yi nodded and did not continue to ask. He knew that since he chose this spaceship, there would be no problem. Commissioner Knight nodded, then turned and walked towards his location. Bai Yi also walked away. After they left, in the main cabin, the intelligent program immediately transmitted the position of the cockpit selected by the Knight Commissioner to the main console. Then, the main console opened immediately, and a huge projection appeared. Identity detection successful. Yi Yufan, congratulations on obtaining temporary driving permission. Single quote. Do you want to activate autonomous driving mode? The intelligent program of Wide Area Silent Number S2 asked again. Commissioner Yi nodded lightly, okay. Well, I wish you a pleasant voyage. Single quote. The voice of the smart program sounded again. Then, the huge projection disappeared, leaving only a light screen and a row of database data for them to watch. Sit down. Commissioner Yi guided him in a familiar manner. Yeah, Bai Yi frowned and sat down quickly. I couldn't help but look carefully at the internal structure of this subship. After all, this is an airship. Although this subship is only a small subship of the aircraft carrier division, it is also a very powerful presence on the aircraft carrier. Moreover, with the speed of that spaceship just now, it can crush the speed of many high-level professionals. Not to mention, this aircraft carrier is still a subship of an aircraft carrier, not the main body. Before Bai Yi was completely familiar with it, committee member Knight had already entered the main information about the voyage. Destination: Pacific Ocean, Honolulu Island. Honolulu copy. Confirm, closing square bracket. Weather. Committee member Yi decisively clicked confirmation. Preparing route. Destination: Honolulu Island. Honolulu copy. Location: Pacific. Single quote. Estimated voyage: 8,990 plus nautical miles. Estimated arrival time: 1 hour and 30 minutes. Single quote. Bai Yi raised his eyebrows. It actually took another hour and a half. He thought that with the speed of this airship, he could get there in 3 to 5 minutes. But it can also be seen from the side, how far it is across most of the Pacific Ocean. After confirming the destination, the entire airship started slowly. Although the normal speed is a terrifying speed of 3,000 meters per second, it is still moving slowly like a turtle at this time. Not that it takes time to get started. Instead, let the people on the ship get used to the gradually increasing aviation speed. Even if all the professionals have a transcendent physique, if they accelerate to 3,000 seconds, not to mention dizziness and sudden physiological reactions, at least they will feel uncomfortable. After a few minutes of acceleration, the entire airship began to enter normal aviation speed. 3,000 meters per second. The surrounding scenery seemed to be distorted, showing a ripple-like picture. You can pick a movie and have the smart system play it. After all, this period of time is still a bit boring. Commissioner Yi reminded. Oh, that's right. Bai Yi raised his eyebrows. Immediately, Bai Yi called the intelligent system on the spaceship, randomly selected a movie, Pacific Rim, and started watching it. Have to say, the current situation of sailing on the ocean goes well with a movie about mechas and monsters on the sea. After watching a movie, the time is almost up. If it weren't for Bai Yi watching it, he would have doubled the speed of some irrelevant plots in the middle of the movie, otherwise he wouldn't have been able to get off the ship in time. From the seat cabin, you can clearly see the blue ocean below. Even bluer than what Bai Yi saw in the dungeon titled Disaster last time. Here, it is the center point of the Pacific Ocean. Not far from the spaceship, there was a small active volcano crater. The land below wasn't that barren, but it didn't feel like a lush forest either. There is lava, but not much. There are weeds and woods, but not much. It can be said that it is a special ecology of a land, but there are not many creatures. Get ready, we're about to disembark, Commissioner Yi reminded. Bai Yi nodded silently, and then got ready at the same time. The intelligence system performs real-time calculations, bringing great convenience to the two of them. Landing site detected. Single quote. It is detected that the destination has been reached, whether to enable the login scheme. Single quote. Whether. Single quote. Commissioner Yi slowly opened his cockpit and pressed confirmation on the virtual system screen. The next moment, there was a faint feeling of falling, like that carried by an elevator. But it was not very obvious. Until it completely landed, Bai Yi didn't have a strong sense of déjà vu. There is such an illusion. It was as if he was not on a landing spaceship, but sitting on an escalator in a shopping mall going down. Nothing spectacular, but plain and simple. The staircase opened again, and a slightly hot breath greeted him. There was no way, after all there was a volcano not far away. Dust of unknown composition filled the air, making breathing a little less smooth. But even there are some harmful and toxic ingredients. It also poses no threat to the current professionals who have a transcendent body per capita. Ahead. This is the dungeon for this trip, Honolulu Island Honolulu Dungeon. Committee member Yi was inside the spaceship, preparing to watch Bai Yi leave. But Bai Yi just stood there without any intention of entering the dungeon. What's wrong? Did you forget to prepare the food? Committee Knight asked. Bai Yi turned around and shook his head slightly. Seeing this, committee member Yi did not urge anything again, but felt a little doubtful. Commissioner Knight knows. So far, all the professionals who have entered this dungeon have never come back. I don't know if it is still in the copy, or if it has passed away and been buried in heaven. And this aspect is exactly what Bai Yi thought. Even though he awakened the SSS level hidden profession, Bai Yi never felt that he was the chosen one and that he could move forward and solve any difficulties at will. What if he goes in too and can't get out? He, like the 159 seniors who entered before, can't come back. So, Bai Yi suddenly had a flash of inspiration and remembered his incredible professional skills. He turned back with some confidence, looked at Commissioner Yi, and said confidently, "As long as I come back, there will be 5 basic S-level skill scrolls, and what opportunities will there be for skill level improvement, right?" Seeing Bai Yi's determined eyes, committee member Yi was a little moved. Why does this kid suddenly look so confident? Commissioner Yi didn't say much, just nodded calmly. Well, yes, Commissioner Yi confirmed the matter again and promised. This is a promise made by the Hengxia Alliance and the country, and we will never break our promise. Hearing this, the confidence on Bai Yi's face still did not diminish even half a point. Then I'll be relieved. Bai Yi pretended to be relaxed and let out a long sigh of relief. Just when committee member Yi didn't know what to answer and was planning to stay silent as usual, he saw Bai Yi slowly stretching out his hand. Immediately, then I saw Bai Yi's lips parted slightly. Come out a few. Committee member Knight. When Commissioner Yi saw this scene, he was a little confused and had no idea what Bai Yi was planning to do. But soon, he had some guesses in his mind. Just see. Against the sun, the shadow in front of Bai Yi suddenly began to twist and deform. It's like hallucinating. Several shadows that were so dense that they were completely dark slowly emerged from Bai Yi's shadow in regular shapes. Committee member Knight. Seeing this, committee member Yi also understood that this should be Bai Yi's own professional skill. For most professions, you can get a clue from their names. Just like Bai Yi's profession called King of Shadows, when Commissioner Yi looked directly at this scene, he immediately guessed something. This, are you manipulating your own shadow? Soon, several shadow men completely emerged from Bai Yi's shadow. To be precise, he emerged from the different dimension, Kingdom of Shadows located in Bai Yi's shadow. This different dimension called Kingdom of Shadows is spread under every shadow, but unfortunately the only drawback is that the entrance and exit can only be the same for the time being. That is to say, if the shadow men burrowed into the shadows under the trees, they would have to come out from the shadows of the trees. But the good thing is, Bai Yi has placed all the entrances and exits of the current Kingdom of Shadows in his own shadow, so he can use them at will. Now, several shadow Nagas and shadow sea spirits came out one after another, estimated to be about 20 in total. Looking at this small army that was beginning to show its size, Commissioner Yi frowned slightly. He couldn't figure out what Bai Yi was doing. But Bai Yi knows it himself. He is releasing the Thor mark. Nonsense. He is letting these shadow men spread all over the sea area around the island so that he can use his recently awakened divine skill, Shadow Swap, to escape from the dungeon at any time. What are you? I understand, it should be a skill that replaces the summoned object, right? Unfortunately, this method doesn't work. Someone has tried it before, but it was completely unable to contact the summoned objects outside the copy. After all, inside the dungeon and outside the dungeon are two completely different worlds. Committee member Yi thought for a while and introduced a long paragraph to Bai Yi in an unimaginable way. Hear this. Bai Yi just smiled, said nothing, turned around and walked towards the entrance of the instance. Looking at Bai Yi's back, committee member Yi thought for a moment and finally said, "When you come out, use your black ID card to contact me. If you can come out." Committee member Yi murmured the last part of the sentence in a low voice without saying it loudly. Bai Yi didn't look back, just waved his hand without authorization and looked at the copy. This faint blue vortex is quite different from the normal copy. There are no official buildings around. Just two sections of rock barriers were simply erected, slowly wrapping the entrance to the dungeon. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.